Chapter 847. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. Chu Feiping lowered his head in disbelief and looked at the long saber that had pierced his chest. He did not expect Xian Pingho to be so fast, nor did he expect that it was actually a pair of sabers. Tang Yueshan's heart raced. What the F***ck? Actually, it wasn't too appropriate to call it one move. Strictly speaking, the 3 moves that Marquis Xian Pingho gave Chu Feiping should also be counted. Although he didn't seem to attack, he was actually observing. There was no such thing as a free reward in this world. And there was no such thing as an easy victory. It was all about tempering one's troops and preparing one's horses. From the moment Chang Jing and Chu Feiping exchanged blows, Xian Pingho began to observe and analyze Chu Feiping's moves. But that was from afar, and it was inevitable that he would miss out on some details. Thus he allowed him to make 3 more moves, closely watching the details of every move he made. Although it seemed like he had only taken the initiative to attack once, he had already exchanged more than 100 blows with Chu Feiping in his mind when they were on the war chariot. Tang Yueshan said in admiration, "Old Xiao, you're amazing." Marquis Xian Pingho said very pertinently, "Chu Feiping is not weak. He lost so quickly because he underestimated his opponent." Tang Yueshan felt that what Marquis Xian Ping said was reasonable, but why did it sound so unbelievable when such humble words came from Marquis Xian Ping's mouth? Marquis Xian Ping sighed in all seriousness. If he wasn't so careless, he might have been able to last 1 more move against me. Tang Yueshan was speechless. You can only choose between your dignity and your life, right? Hiss. Marquis Xian Ping suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air and bent down. He used one hand to support himself on the ground with the long saber, and the other hand to support his waist. This Marquis waist. The corner of Tang Yueshan's mouth twitched. Can you be more handsome than 3 seconds? Marquis Xian Ping said bitterly. What are you standing there for? Come down and help me up. Tang Yueshan pursed his lips and was about to jump down from the chariot when he saw Chu Feiping, who was lying in a pool of blood, pick up the sword on the ground and thrust it at Marquis Xian Ping's back. Marquis Xian Ping was tormented by his waist injury and was caught off guard. It was too late for Tang Yueshan to react. The long sword had already stabbed out. He turned pale with fright and shouted, "Old Xiao!" Below the city wall, the Liang army and the Black Wind cavalry were still engaged in an intense battle. The left wing of the Black Wind cavalry suffered the heaviest casualties. Cavalry and war horses constantly fell, but new war horses and cavalry were constantly replenished. After Tang Zhong escorted Gu Jiao to the rear of the Liang Kingdom's army, he immediately rushed back, but he was still unable to turn the tide. He had been stabbed 3 times, twice in his left leg and once in his abdomen. Even his armor had been pierced through. Judging from the situation of the battle between the 2 armies, the Liang Kingdom's army had suffered more losses. However, the Liang Kingdom's army also had more people. Even if the ratio was 3-to-1, the Liang Kingdom's army would still be the last to survive. Tang Zhong swung his sword at another Liang soldier. Unfortunately, he had used up all his strength, and this sword strike did not cause any damage to his opponent. The other party only staggered for a moment before immediately charging at Tang Zhong. Tang Zhong did not have the strength to dodge this sword. He was very clear that he could not even pick up the sword. He was going to die. Junior Commander. I may have to go first. I have misunderstood you in the past. Please don't blame me. You have to live well and lead the Black Wind cavalry to win this battle. In the next life, we will fight side by side. Tang Zhong fell to the ground. However, the Liang Kingdom soldier did not stab him. Mu Qingchen killed him with a single strike. Mu Qingchen helped Tang Zhong to his feet, and while protecting Tang Zhong, he fought his way out. The once spotless first young master of Xingdu was now covered in the blood of the enemy. Every move he made was a killing move. He did not give the enemy any chance to survive. In just a few days, the cruel battlefield had taught him a profound truth. Mercy to the enemy was cruelty to the companions. Cheng Fugui and Li Jin's situation wasn't very good either. Cheng Fugui had been injured before, And although he had recovered, the strength in his left arm was still a lot weaker than before after 100 days of recovery. The middle army had already been fighting with the right wing. Chung Fugui and Li Jin were guarding each other. Chung Fugui gasped, "The vanguard can't hold on much longer." Li Jin swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty, "The vanguard can't hold on much longer. If the Liang Kingdom's army did not retreat, the Black Wind Cavalry would really be finished." Li Jin said, "Junior Commander went to assassinate the Liang Kingdom's general. I hope she can succeed," Chung Fugui said, "but it has been so long." Chung Fugui did not finish his words, but the two of them knew. They saw with their own eyes that Tong Zhong escorted Gu Jiao to the back of the Liang Kingdom's army. It had been half an hour since then. It would not take that long to assassinate a person. Unless Junior Commander was in trouble. Or even worse, the Junior Commander had been killed instead. The two of them clenched the spears in their hands, thinking that the fierce and cute Junior Commander might die in the hands of the Liang Kingdom's bastards. Their hearts burned with a raging fire. Kill. Kill these King bastards. While the two of them were fighting, a low bugle sounded from the back of the Liang Kingdom's army. This was the bugle call to attack? The Liang Kingdom's army was going to attack. Junior Commander was killed. Woo! Another bugle call sounded. Wait, no, this was not an attack. It was a retreat. The Liang Kingdom's army was retreating. Ha ha. Accompanied by a wild laughter, a man wearing the Yin Kingdom's armor rushed out from the Liang Kingdom's army with a bloody head in his hand. Chu Feiping's head is here. Your Liang Kingdom's general was killed. The Yin Kingdom's reinforcements are here. Bastards from the Liang Kingdom. Give me your life. It was Tang Yueshan. The Liang Kingdom's army was in chaos. They even panicked when they retreated. The Black Wind Cavalry, who were already at the end of their rope, suddenly became energetic. The imperial court's reinforcements were finally here. The Liang Kingdom's general was finally dead. The Liang Kingdom's army was leaderless. If they did not kill now, when would they? Chung Fugui shouted at the top of his lungs. He raised the spear in his hand and shouted, "Bastards from the Liang Kingdom killed so many of our Black Wind Cavalry. You want to escape? Not so easy. Brothers, charge for me. Kill them all." Since the imperial court's army was here, the garrison camp did not need to be a reserve force anymore. Li Jin ordered his subordinates, "Go and tell General Zhou and General Zhang that the garrison camp will join the battle. Kill the bastards from the Liang Kingdom." Yes. What followed was a full-scale revenge by the Black Wind Cavalry. Of the 80,000 Liang Kingdom's army that attacked the city, less than 30,000 managed to escape safely. However, when the Black Wind Cavalry reached the rear, they did not find any trace of the imperial court's army. There was only a chariot that was destroyed by the fleeing Liang Kingdom's army, and 3 dusty men sitting cross-legged on the roadside, old, middle-aged, and young. Next to the old man was their young commander, and next to the young man was a Liang Kingdom soldier of unknown identity. The Black Wind King was next to the young commander, sniffing the young commander's breath from time to time. The young commander was still alive but unconscious. Along the way, the young commander was alert and vigilant. He did not even relax when he was sleeping. However, they did not know if it was an illusion. But at this moment, the young commander seemed to be sleeping very soundly beside these people. They did not have the heart to disturb him. After a while, one of the cavalrymen said weakly, What's going on? Aren't they Great Yan's reinforcements?" "Don't tell me the Great Yan's reinforcements that the lunatic was talking about are these guys? Ha ha ha. It's so fun to kill them. Liang bastards. Don't run away. Keep fighting with your grandfather." Everyone was speechless. Ugh, that lunatic is here. Tang Yueshan jumped off his horse. He was riding a Black Wind Cavalry, and he felt so good. He looked at Marquis Xianpingho, and the other two in confusion. Old Xiao. Old Gu. Changjing. What happened to you guys? The 3 of them were expressionless and spat out a mouthful of dust. The Liang Kingdom's army had scattered and fled. There was a lot of dust on the roadside. The Liang soldier lying on the ground was Chu Feiping. The head in Tang Yueshan's hand was not Chu Feiping's head, but a Liang soldier's. It was so bloody that it could not be recognized. In addition, he was the one who blew the horn to retreat. Just now, Chu Feiping faked his death and attacked Marquis Xianpinghe. To be honest, even Tang Yueshan thought that Marquis Xianpinghe would not survive. No one expected that Marquis Xianpinghe would strike Chu Feiping's sword with a frenzied saber. Marquis Xianpinghe's murderous aura was like a rainbow. He stepped on Chu Feiping's bleeding chest. He looked at Chu Feiping coldly. His unfathomable eyes were like a bottomless abyss. Chu Feiping, you're not enough to sneak attack me. Tang Yueshan was sure that Marquis Xianpinghe's waist injury was not faked. He was also sure that Marquis Xianpinghe had let down his guard. He could only say that Marquis Xianpinghe's reaction was so fast that it was beyond the limit of ordinary masters. He was able to fight his way from the underground arena of Zhao Kingdom to Yin Kingdom. He was the number one of the lower kingdoms and defeated the number one of the higher kingdoms. He did not rely on luck, but on his strength. However, he hid his real identity and appearance in the underground arena. The only time he lost his mask on the street was when the artist upstairs saw him. Since then, he set a precedent for men to be on the beauty list of the 6 kingdoms. Let him think. Who knocked off old Zhao's mask? It seemed to be a woman called something Yan. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that you can't find on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1057132449. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 848. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Meng Mountain, where the Imperial Army was stationed. The heavy rain lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, which destroyed the road ahead. The soldiers braved the rain for 2 days, but they still couldn't completely clear the road. In a tent lit by candles, a little palace maid dressed as a manservant, Huan came in with a plate of fresh wild fruits. Your Highness, this is the fruit that I just picked. Please have a taste. Shang Guanyin lightly said. I have no appetite, you can eat it yourself. But these are specially prepared for your Highness. This slave's hand is scratched, Huan said while showing the wound on her hand. After getting along with each other these days, Huan had already grasped the temperament of the Crown Princess. The Crown Princess was not blindly amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. As long as she acted pitiful to her, it generally wouldn't be too difficult. Shang Guanyin looked at her red and swollen hand and sighed. Put it on the table. Huan happily put the fruit on the small table. Shang Guanyin picked up a red fruit and thought of the 3 children in different places. She didn't know how they were doing. Your Highness, General Wang wants to see you. A guard's voice came from outside the tent. Come in, Shang Guanyin said. Huan sensibly pushed behind the screen and began to tidy up Shang Guanyin's clothes. Your Highness, Yiqing wants to see you. Yiqing's voice also came from outside the tent. Come in, Shang Guanyin said. Wang Man and Yiqing entered the tent together. Yiqing didn't go with the army. He was ordered by the state preceptor to transport medicinal materials to the front line. He set off a few days later because the Imperial Army was delayed by the heavy rain in Meng Mountain, which allowed him to catch up. Wang Man had always looked down on the charlatans of the state preceptor hall. He didn't look at Yiqing at all. Yiqing didn't care and respectfully saluted Shang Guanyin. Your Highness. Shang Guanyin looked at the two and said, Why did you come to see me? Yiqing, as a junior, no matter what Wang Man's attitude was, he still abided by his duty and showed the etiquette of the state preceptor hall. He motioned for Wang Man to speak first. Wang Man didn't stand on ceremony with him. He straightened his back and said, I'm here to report to the Crown Princess that the road has been cleared. We can depart tomorrow morning. Shang Guanyin secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, we can set off. The soldiers have worked hard. We have stayed here for a few days and delayed our journey to Chuyang. I wonder how the Black Wind Cavalry is doing. Before the heavy rain washed away the roads, the scouts sent back the news that the Black Wind Cavalry had taken back Chuyang City. However, what followed was the news that the Liang Kingdom's army was going to attack Chuyang City. Wang Man coldly snorted and said, "The Black Wind Cavalry is not good at defending a city. Moreover, we still have to defend against the tens of thousands of rebels in the city. In my humble opinion, Chuyang City will most likely fall. A child is a child, too soft-hearted. He should have killed all of the rebels when he captured them to prevent future troubles. What was the point of seizing it? If the Nangong family were to raise their arms, the rebels in the city would definitely cooperate with the Liang Kingdom's army. What a waste of the Black Wind Cavalry's military strength. They're all going to die in that brat's hands." Yi Qing coldly glanced at Wang Man. "General Wang, did you personally go to Chuyang City to see? Or did you go to the battlefield? What you said is clear and logical. If Chuyang City is successfully defended, will you kneel down and call the Black Wind Cavalry's commander Big Brother?" Yi Qing has always had the image of a gentle senior brother. He treated people gently and politely, and rarely showed such a thorny side. In Shang Guanqing's words, "I can give you face, but you can't not know it in your heart." Wang Man opened his arms. "Humph. If he can defend it, then why not let him be the great general of the West?" Under normal circumstances, when the crown princess heard this, she should have come forward to stop it. "General Wang, what are you talking about? You are the most senior elder, and your experience in leading troops is unparalleled. The position of the great general is yours. How can you give it to a fledgling brat?" The reality is, the crown princess looked at Wang Man in surprise and helplessly said, "Since the great general said so, then, this one will be the witness." Wang Man. Shang Guanyin looked at Yi Qing again. "Yi Qing, why are you looking for me?" Yi Qing cupped his hands and said, "Originally, I wanted to say that if the road is blocked tomorrow, I will take a detour first, but it's okay now." Shang Guanyin nodded and looked at the rainy night outside the tent. "I really want to reach Chuyang City soon." Chuyang City. After a big battle, the North Gate was full of devastation. The city's defenders were cleaning up the mess at the scene. The medical officers and soldiers evacuated the wounded soldiers from the scene. At the city gate, a medical officer and a city's defender were carrying a wounded soldier covered with blood on a stretcher. Suddenly, the medical officer's footsteps stepped on the corpse on the ground. He staggered and the stretcher was tilted. Ah! The medical officer was shocked. This was a patient with a serious fracture. He couldn't fall again, otherwise he would die. A large and powerful hand held the stretcher firmly. The defender looked up and respectfully said, "General Ji Pingchuan, the North Gate's defender." Thank you, General Ji." The medical officer from Chengdu heard the defender call him General Ji, so he also called him General Ji. General Ji slightly nodded. "Are you okay?" "It's okay." The medical officer lifted the stretcher again and entered the North Gate with the soldiers. Not long after, another group of people came to the scene. Ji Pingchuan turned around and bowed to the leader, Lord Chang. Although they were both generals, the ranks of the two were not the same. Sun Takeshi was the leader of all the defenders and the commander of the border. Sun Takeshi dismounted from his horse and looked at the bloody scene. He frowned and asked, "What's the situation? How did the Liang Kingdom retreat?" Ji Pingchuan said, "The imperial court sent 4 reinforcements." 4. Sun Takeshi was shocked. He wasn't surprised by the small number of reinforcements, but that they were able to make the 80,000-strong Liang Kingdom retreat. Ji Pingchuan explained. They helped Commander Xiao to mess up the rear of the Liang Kingdom's army and cut off Chu Feiping's head. They even sounded the retreat horn without permission. The Liang Kingdom's army was in a panic when their commander was killed, so their morale dropped. It was really the Liang Kingdom's commander sounding the retreat horn, so they all retreated. The Black Wind cavalry chased after them and killed many of their soldiers. Could it be done like that? What kind of shameless tactic was that? Soon Takeshi didn't know what to say. The cowardly ones starved to death, while the bold ones were stuffed to death. What did it mean to fight a battle to the death? This was it. The success rate of this plan was less than 10%. If it was Tsun Takeshi, he definitely wouldn't be able to do it. Firstly, he couldn't kill Chu Feipeng. Secondly, how did he come up with the idea of sounding the retreat horn? How's Commander Xiao? Tsun Takeshi asked. Ji Pingchuan said. He's injured, so he went back to the camp for treatment. In the commander's tent, Gu Jiao was lying unconscious on the cold and hard bed. The old duke and a medical officer were also in the tent. The medical officer didn't know the old duke. He only heard from the soldiers that he was a reinforcement sent by the imperial court. The medical officer went to remove Gu Jiao's armor. The old duke frowned. Wait! The medical officer was shocked by the stern voice. He quickly retracted his hand and asked in a daze, Sir, what's the matter? The old duke looked at Gu Jiao indifferently and asked in a deep voice, Is there a female medical officer? The medical officer said, Yes. The old duke didn't allow any refusal. Call the female medical officer to apply medicine on him. Ah! The medical officer was stunned. Why would a male medical officer need a female medical officer to treat him? The old duke's expression was frighteningly cold. The medical officer didn't know that he wasn't an official of the imperial court, and thought that he was a trusted aide of the crown princess. He didn't dare to offend him, so he hurriedly called a female medical officer over. The female medical officer was also very puzzled as to why she was sent to take care of the young commander. Her medical skills weren't bad, but she had little experience and was a woman. It was very difficult for her to be put in an important position. When she entered the tent, the old duke came out. The female medical officer made a terrible assumption. But when she saw that the young commander was indeed unconscious and couldn't have done anything to any woman, she became even more puzzled. So why did you call me? The female medical officer was puzzled as she removed the young commander's armor. When she used a pair of scissors to cut open his blood-soaked clothes, she was completely stunned. Gu Jiao slept soundly, and didn't wake up until the evening of the third day. When she opened her eyes, the female medical officer was changing the dressing on her arm. Her eyes subconsciously flashed a trace of cold vigilance. The female medical officer was so frightened that her hands trembled, and the medicine fell. I've seen you before. You're the accompanying female medical officer. The vigilance in Gu Jiao's eyes dissipated. She sat up and said, How long have I been asleep? The female medical officer picked up the medicine and said in a frightened voice, 3 days. Gu Jiao said, It's been so long. How's the battle situation? The army of the Liang Kingdom has retreated. They suffered heavy casualties. They shouldn't attack the city in the short term. The female medical officer said and glanced at Gu Jiao's clothes. Young commander, you. Gu Jiao followed her gaze and looked down. Oh, her clothes were open. The wound on her chest had been treated and wrapped with thick gauze. It seemed that her identity as a female had been exposed. As if guessing Gu Jiao's thoughts, the female medical officer hurriedly said, I didn't tell anyone. The dignified old general forbade her to spread the news. He even said that if she dared to leak a word, he would kill her with a knife. Thinking of that person, the female medical officer's eyes lit up. Young commander, the old general has been guarding the door of the tent these days when you were in a coma. He didn't allow anyone to come in. I'll tell him that you're awake. As she spoke, she walked around the screen to the door of the tent. She lifted the curtain that the old general had thickened. However, she didn't see the old general. The female medical officer scratched her head. It's strange. He has been here for the past few days. Old Gu, are you going out? Tang Yueshan had just returned from a stroll on the black wind horse when he saw the old duke dressed as a merchant. It seemed that he was going out. The old duke said, I'm going to Puqing to inquire about the news. Puqing was a city of the Great Yan that had been captured by the Jin state. It was less than 100 miles away from Xuyang City. It would take 2 days to get there on horseback. Tang Yueshan raised his eyebrows in surprise. You're finally willing to help? Didn't you say you didn't want to get involved? Don't blame me and old Xiao for dragging you here by force. The old duke took a few steps forward and looked at the bright moon in the gray sky. He said seriously, "Let's make it clear first. I'm not doing this for the Yen state or that girl. It's you two who acted on your own and got the Zhao state involved in the war between the Shan kingdoms. It's impossible to play it safe. The Jin state and the Liang state are on good terms with each other. The Jin state won't let the Zhao state go. We can only fight with our backs against the wall." After he finished, he didn't wait for Tang Yueshan's response and turned around. He saw that Tang Yueshan had already led the horse to the front. The old duke clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. "So I've said so much for nothing? Since when did these two become so infuriating?" Gu Jiao was seriously injured, but her recovery speed was amazing. After lying in bed for 3 days, she was fine. When everyone heard that the young commander had woken up, they were so happy that they couldn't wait to visit her in her tent. However, they were stopped by the medical officers. Gu Jiao called Advisor Hu and asked him about the casualties of the Black Wind Battalion. Advisor Hu sighed. "We were all prepared to sacrifice ourselves. Thanks to your father." "My father?" Gu Jiao was confused for a long time before she remembered that she had seen Marquis Xianping before she fainted. The father Advisor Hu mentioned should be Marquis Xianping. This was a fierce battle. Sacrifices were inevitable. However, compared to the total annihilation, most of the Black Wind Battalion soldiers were saved. Advisor Hu said regretfully, "Cheng Fugui, Li Jin, and Tang Zhong are seriously injured. They may not be able to participate in the following battles." "What about Mu Qingchen?" Gu Jiao asked. At the mention of this, Advisor Hu's expression turned serious. Young Master Mu's performance was very surprising. His growth speed was very fast, and he was no longer the pampered young master of an aristocratic family who would vomit after killing people. He was brave and decisive on the battlefield, killing countless soldiers of the Liang kingdom, and saving many of his Black Wind cavalry comrades. Cheng Fugui was also saved by him. He was also slightly injured, but it was not a big deal. Gu Jiao nodded secretly. Mu Qingchen had also become stronger. That was great. In that dream, Mu Qingchen did not encounter the Liang state. He directly faced the Jin state army. Because he could not bear to kill, he missed the opportunity to escape. He was surrounded by the Jin army and was shot dead by Gong Sunyu. Mu Qingchen would not be merciful now, would he? If he encountered such a predicament again, he would definitely be able to kill his way out. Gong Sunyu's arrow would not have a chance to hit him, right? His ending would also be rewritten, right? Gu Jiao washed up and dressed neatly. She went to see the Black Wind King first. The Black Wind King had been guarding outside her tent for the past few days. The horse trainer had treated the Black Wind King's injuries. Its head was wrapped in white gauze, making it look very pitiful. Gu Jiao touched its neck. The Black Wind King sniffed Gu Jiao's breath. Horses were very sensitive. They could tell whether a person's injuries were serious from their breath. "I'm fine," Gu Jiao said. The Black Wind King was probably relieved. It slowly lay down on the ground. It was also very tired. However, it did not dare to rest until Gu Jiao woke up. It was just like how it did not dare to grow old before the battle was over. Gu Jiao stayed by its side and gently stroked its mane. She waited until it fell asleep before going to the tent next door. Her old father, Marquis Xianping, lived in this tent. When she lifted the curtain and entered, Marquis Xianping and Tang Yueshan were both there. Tang Yueshan was wiping his precious Tang family bow, while Marquis Xianping was sitting on a long bench. He looked like a bandit. No domineering. In front of him was a man with disheveled hair, and a disheveled face tied to a pillar with iron chains. The man glared at Marquis Xianping in front of him. He wanted to pounce on him and bite him. "Kill me if you can." Marquis Xianping smiled casually and said, "Why would I kill you? Do I look like a bloodthirsty person? I'm so kind that I can't even bear to kill an ant on the side of the road. How can I bear to kill you?" A bug crawled over. Marquis Xianping did not even lift his eyelids. He stomped it to death. The man was speechless. Marquis Xianping smiled. "The people outside all think that you're dead. Your subordinates are defeated. The morale of the Liang kingdom has been destroyed. It's impossible for them to recover." Chu Feiping gritted his teeth and said angrily, "What do you want?" Marquis Xianping rubbed his hands. I've been a little short of money recently. I wonder what price the king of the Liang Kingdom will pay to redeem you. If the price is too low, it's not too late for me to kill you. Chu Feiping was speechless. Marquis Xianping looked up and saw Gu Jiao at the door. He smiled. Oh, my son is here? Gu Jiao stepped in and greeted Marquis Xianping and Tang Yueshan. You're awake? Tang Yueshan carefully put down his treasure and walked over to look at her. You're the same as Chang Jing. You've recovered quite quickly. Chang Jing is also injured? Gu Jiao asked. Chang Jing had already fainted when she fought with Chu Feiping. Marquis Xianping looked at Chu Feiping and said lightly, My meridians were shattered by this guy. It's just a minor injury. How could a shattered meridian be considered a minor injury? What kind of pervert was Chang Jing? Gu Jiao's gaze fell on Chu Feiping and she checked his meridians. So this guy was not beheaded. But it didn't matter. His dantian was destroyed, and he would be a cripple when he returned. Gu Jiao asked, Other than him, did you capture anyone else? Marquis Xianping said slowly, You mean those swordsmen? They're dead. Anyway, she already knew that Long Yi's master was the Sword Hut. In the future, she could investigate in this direction. Gu Jiao loosened her hand and asked Marquis Xianping, You want to use him to negotiate with the Liang Kingdom? Marquis Xianping, Gu Jiao suggested. Then you'd better hide him first. Marquis Xianping, why? Gu Jiao said. The imperial army is about to arrive. Chu Feiping is also a bargaining chip for them to negotiate with the Liang Kingdom. You should be careful that they won't snatch Chu Feiping away. Oh, Marquis Xianping laughed arrogantly. In this world, no one can snatch things from this marquis. Outside the East City Gate, the imperial army arrived. Chang Wei led his subordinates out of the city to welcome them. The group of people knelt on one knee and saluted. Welcome, Your Highness the Crown Princess. The dusty curtain of the carriage was lifted. Shang Guanyan, dressed in a crown princess robe, came down from the carriage with a dignified look. Digression, Shang Guanyan. I heard that no one can snatch things from your hands? Marquis Xianping. Who does Chu Feiping think he is? This small theater is only for entertainment. It doesn't represent the plot. Little chicken monkey. Don't be afraid. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964226/1056911102. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 849. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are available here. It was late, and there was only a thin moonlight at the city gate, but it was enough for Shang Guanyan to recognize that the people who came to pick her up were not Gu Jiao and the Black Wind Cavalry. She took 2 steps forward, stared at the man at the front of the line, and said, Raise your head. Yes. Soon Takeshi raised his head and looked at the noblest woman in Great Yen. Shang Guanyan was tired, but there was no sign of tiredness between her brows. Her beautiful face was calm and dignified, and her behavior was dignified and decent. She exuded the aura of royalty. Soon Takeshi only took a glance and quickly lowered his eyes. Shang Guanyan said unhurriedly, You are General Tsun Takeshi. When I was young, I saw you in the military camp of Xianyuan family. Tsun Takeshi didn't know if he should be flattered or feel guilty. He was now clear about the crimes of Nangong family. And as a confidant of Nangong family, even if he didn't directly participate in the persecution of Xianyuan family, he had indirectly helped the tyrant and committed a lot of crimes. Especially not long ago, he led his troops to fight Black Wind Cavalry, which was tantamount to a blatant betrayal of the imperial court. He didn't know how the crown princess would deal with him. He had thought it over. No matter what, he deserved to be punished. But his subordinates were just following orders. They were innocent. If necessary, he would use his life to atone for his crime. He only hoped that the crown princess would not vent her anger on the Tsuyang garrison. Shang Guanyin took 2 more steps forward, reached out her hand, and bent down slightly to help him up. General Tsun Takeshi, you have worked hard to defend the city. Please get up. Tsun Takeshi was stunned. He looked at Shang Guanyin in disbelief. Her beautiful face didn't have the slightest cunning of playing politics. She was sincerely praising him. Although Shang Guanyin didn't know what happened in the city, but looking at Tsun Takeshi's attitude, he didn't seem to be in cahoots with Nangong family. In other words, Tsun Takeshi was very likely to have been taken in by her daughter-in-law. It would be best if they could make peace. Her dear daughter-in-law would be the one to suffer if she was attacked from both sides. Moreover, the war was imminent. No matter how serious Tsun Takeshi and the rebel army's crimes were, it was not appropriate to punish them just like that. It was better to let them redeem themselves and serve the imperial court well. The generosity of the crown princess made the ugliness of the Nangong family even more apparent. Tsun Takeshi felt even more guilty. He did not dare to stand up and knelt down on one knee again. Your Highness, I'm guilty, Shang Guanyin said softly. Whether it's a crime or not, let's talk about it later. The ground is cold, you get up first, let your soldiers get up too. The words "the ground is cold" made the eyes of the soldiers turn sour. The officers and soldiers did not expect that the crown princess would still care about them. A strong emotion welled up in their hearts. This was not an era where people were judged by their appearance, but Shang Guanyin, as a woman, had a beauty that could cause the downfall of a country. Men who did not know how to be brave would be willing to go through water and tread on fire for her. In addition, she had a noble status, a broad mind, and a heart that cherished the world. At this moment, everyone felt that the person they were waiting for was not Great Yan's crown princess, but their god. They were willing to fight for their god, even if the war was difficult. Even if there were tens of thousands of people, they would still go forward. Wang Man dismounted from his horse and walked toward the city gate. His gaze fell on Tsun Takeshi and the others, and he could not help but frown. Aren't you the rebels of the Nangong family? Where are the Black Wind cavalry? Did they all die in the battle? These words were very unpleasant. What do you mean by rebels? The crown princess said that they were meritorious officials. They were the regular army of the imperial court. Tsun Takeshi said in a neither servile nor overbearing tone. So it's General Wang. The Black Wind cavalry has set up camp in the city. Because we just won a battle a few days ago and inflicted heavy losses on the Liang family. This general boldly asked my brothers to rest in the camp. I will go out of the city to welcome the crown princess. His words were very clear. First, not only did the Black Wind cavalry not die in the battle, but they also won a beautiful battle. Second, the Black Wind cavalry had a very good relationship with the defending army. They could even call each other brothers. Third, he did not like people looking down on the Black Wind cavalry. Although they were enemies in the beginning, the Black Wind cavalry used their blood to win the respect of the defending army. This was the strongest military force of the Yan kingdom, and they would not accept any rebuttal. Wang Man did not pay attention to the defense of the Black Wind cavalry in his words for the time being. He was extremely shocked. Who did you say won the battle? What battle did they win? Tsun Takeshi puffed up his chest and said solemnly and proudly, the North Gate was deliberately destroyed. The Black Wind cavalry used their flesh and blood to build the city. 20,000 of them fought the 80,000 soldiers of the Liang family. Not only did they behead the Liang family's General Chu Feipeng, but they also lost 50,000 soldiers of the Liang family. Wang Man's jaw almost dropped to the ground. What did you say? Chu Feipeng is dead? Chu Feipeng was the Liang family's divine general, the spiritual leader of the Liang family. With him around, there was no battle that they could not win. When Wang Man first heard that Chu Feipeng was the commander of the army, even he felt that it was very troublesome. On the way here, Wang Man racked his brains to think of a way to deal with Chu Feipeng, who knew that before he could even use his fist, Chu Feiping's head fell to the ground. Impossible. No one can kill Chu Feiping. Shang Guanyin thought in her heart. Could it be Jiao Jiao? Except for her, no one should have the courage to behead Chu Feiping. But thinking of Chu Feiping's strength, Shang Guanyin broke into a cold sweat for Gu Jiao. She didn't know if she was injured. In the presence of outsiders, Shang Guanyin restrained her worry about Gu Jiao. She revealed a gratified smile. When I first came to Cuyang, I heard the good news. I'm very happy. If Imperial Father knows about it, he will definitely be very happy. This time, we were able to repel the Liang army, not only because of the Black Wind Cavalry, but also because of General Chang's help in defending the city. Soon Takashi cupped his fist and said, "This humble subject is ashamed." This humble subject didn't help much in the battle against the Liang family's army at the North Gate. This humble subject doesn't dare to claim credit. However, the 4 experts sent by Her Highness the Crown Princess played an outstanding role in the battle. Our army is like a god. Shang Guanyin was slightly startled. I didn't send any experts to Cuyang. This time, it was Tsun Takashi's turn to be surprised. Aren't they sent by Her Highness the Crown Princess? But they claim to be the Imperial Court's reinforcements. They also have a handwritten letter from Her Highness the Crown Princess. After saying that, Tsun Takashi took out a warm letter from his arms and raised it above his head to present it to Shang Guanyin. After presenting it, he suddenly felt that he was too abrupt. Shouldn't he give it to the palace maid? If a rough man like him touches something, won't it dirty the Crown Princess's hands? But which one is the palace maid? Huaner was standing next to the Crown Princess dressed like a little eunuch. No wonder he didn't recognize her. Shang Guanyin personally took the letter. Tsun Takashi was secretly relieved. At the same time, he was a little nervous and excited. The Crown Princess has an incomparable noble temperament, but she doesn't put on a high and mighty air. She is really an approachable Crown Princess. After Shang Guanyin opened the letter and read it, she was also confused. It's my handwriting, but I don't remember writing this letter. There's also my personal seal on it. What the hell is going on? Right, there's also this. It says that it's your keepsake. Soon Takashi pulled out a token and handed it over to Her Highness the Crown Princess. Shang Guanyin held it in her hand and looked. Wasn't this the bank's token that she had given Xiao Heng before leaving? If there wasn't enough money for travel, take it to the bank to get some money. So it was like this? Aheng had come? Didn't Aheng go to Shui Pass to take care of the problems with the countries of Chun and Zhao? Could it be that Aheng had changed her plans and came to Chuyang to meet up with Jiao Jiao? This sort of possibility was not impossible. Soon Takashi did not hear about the eldest grandson. Looking at it like this, Aheng had concealed her identity and came over. That's also true. The eldest grandson was on his way to Shui Pass. Of course, he could not openly appear in Chuyang City. Forget it, what was she blindly guessing for? When she saw Aheng in a bit, wouldn't everything be clear? Shang Guanyin was impatient to see her son. She could not wait to march over with the army. She sat in the carriage and said to Tsun Takashi, "This monarch remembers. There was such a thing. It's this monarch's trusted aide. Lead the way. This monarch wants to see them at the military camp." Yes. Tsun Takashi mounted his horse. Shang Guanyin opened the window and said to Wang Man, who was still immersed in the silence of Chu Feiping's death, "Great General Wang, I will leave the army to you. I will trouble you with leading the soldiers to the military camp to meet up with this monarch." Yes. Wang Man recovered and cupped his hands to comply. The carriage entered the city and quickly sped into the night. Shang Guanyin took a deep breath and squeezed her fingers. Faster, faster, even faster. She wanted to see her son. She was almost impatient. She had missed out on so many years in the past. Now she cherished every day that she could see her son. The carriage stopped at the military camp. "This subordinate." Soon Takashi spoke. "There's no need to report." Shang Guanyin got off her horse. She wanted to give her son a pleasant surprise. "Which tent are they living in?" "They are all living next to the young commander." As Tsun Takashi led the way, he pointed at the tents in the middle and said, "There are 3 over there. There are 2 people living in the tent on the left. One of them is extremely handsome, while the other is an extremely powerful expert. Handsome? A very powerful expert? Were they not Ahing and Longi? An oil lamp was lit inside the tent, and the silhouette of a man could be seen from the tent. It seemed that he was reading at night. To be so diligent, it was definitely Aheng. Also, that perfect nose and the outline of his brow bone were clearly Aheng's. Shang Guanyin lifted her imperial dowager's robe, and could not suppress the joy in her heart. Quickly walking over, she lifted the curtain. Son. Just as she entered, she clearly saw the man inside the tent. The word son was immediately stuck in her throat. The newest chapter of this book has not been completed. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1056701117. HTML Genius. Remember this website's address. www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion's mobile reading website. Chapter 850. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Shang Guanyin blinked. Her first reaction was that she was mistaken. Her second reaction confirmed that the scene in front of her was real. She never expected to see this man in the Black Wind Cavalry's camp. Her son became her son's father. This was a bit shocking. Marquis Xianping's reaction was not much better than Shang Guanyin's. He also didn't think that after 20 years, he could see the woman he buried with his own hands again. The main reason was that Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't say anything before coming. There was no earth-shattering quarrel, no commotion. The reunion of the two was unexpectedly calm. Shang Guanyin looked at him in a daze and forgot to speak for a while. Marquis Xianping held the military deployment map in his hand, his thin lips tightly pursed. He didn't know what to say first. It was impossible to not recognize the other party. They had been together for so long, and they had a child. But with the passage of time, they were no longer young and inexperienced. He was no longer young and frivolous, but he was more restrained and calm of an adult man. She was no longer the slave girl who was locked in a cage and struggled like a little beast. She changed into a noble crown princess robe. Yes, she was Aheng's mother. Aheng was the eldest grandson of the great Yin emperor. Wasn't she the great Yin crown princess? If he didn't experience it himself, who could imagine that the slave girl he redeemed from the underground martial arts arena was a little phoenix in distress? Marquis Xianping's mood suddenly became a little complicated. Empress Dowager Zhuang must have done it deliberately. She deliberately didn't say that Shang Guanyin would come here, deliberately catching him off guard. The Empress Dowager was really ruthless. She took revenge for the disaster at sea. Marquis Xianping had always been shameless, but in this situation he was actually a little. Forget it, it's good that she came. He wanted to ask her why she faked her death to escape, and why she took away his son. That. Shang Guanyin took the lead to speak, but before she could finish, Tang Yushan rushed in. He lifted the curtain and laughed loudly. Old Xiao, go out and do something. After staying in the military camp for so long, grass was about to grow on his buttocks. Once I'm done, I'll go to that Fengyue brothel for a drink. Didn't you say the girls there were pretty? Marquis Xianping. Can you shut up? Tang Yueshan slung his broadsword over his shoulder and said sternly. But I just heard that your old flame is coming. Don't let her find out that you've been drinking with girls. Women can be very scary when they're jealous. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Marquis Xianping. What else did you not say? Most importantly, Tang Yueshan lowered his voice. You have to hide Chu-Faping well. Don't let your old flame find out. If someone else wants you, you can refuse, but if she wants you, I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand it. Marquis Xianping, who had always been the one to sell others, had been sold off by Tang Yueshan. Not even his underwear was left. There was a saying that the heavenly Tao was good at reincarnation. Who would the heavens spare? After Tang Yueshan finished speaking, he realized that the atmosphere in the tent was not right. He looked behind the curtain and saw the crown princess in a royal blue python robe. Tang Yueshan was stunned for 3 seconds. Someone seems to be calling me. I'll leave first. After that, Marshal Tang, who had poked the hornet's nest, decisively withdrew from the scene of the large-scale social death. The atmosphere in the tent was even weirder than before. Shang Guanyin originally wanted to apologize for leaving without saying goodbye that year, but her eyes suddenly became dangerous. Do a job? Are you going to rob the people of Yan Dynasty? And sleep with the girls of Yan Dynasty? It's said that a scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. Xiao Ji, you really made me look at you with new eyes. Marquis Xianping was wronged. After coming to Cuyang, he had never said anything about going to the city to rob people. Going to the brothel was even more nonsense. He didn't even remember saying that the girls in Fengyue brothel were pretty. War was a matter of life and death. Who would have the time to think about that kind of thing? Don't listen to old Tang, Marquis Xianping said with a headache. I didn't think so. It's him who wants to go. Shang Guanyin. Oh, whether you go or not, what does it have to do with me? You and I just gave birth to a son. Don't expect me to keep thinking about you all these years? Marquis Xianping. This seems to be my line. In the end, Shang Guanyin was the crown princess. She didn't indulge in love affairs. What, my son's father is going to visit the brothel, so I, as an old flame, have to drink a jar of vinegar, and so on. In her heart, her son was first, and the country was second. Men were fleeting clouds. Shang Guanyin grasped the key point. Using the essence of her Grey-Tant's palace intrigue, the villain attacked first. What's the matter with Chu Feipeng? Listening to your companion's tone, he doesn't seem to be dead. Xiaoji, oh Xiaoji, I've been feeling indebted to you all these years. It turns out that you're just deliberately scheming against me. Marquis Xianping was stunned. What kind of trick was this? It was a bit difficult for him to deal with. After thinking about it, it was all Tang Yueshan's fault. He gritted his teeth and held his forehead. Tang Yueshan, why didn't I kill you in the first place? Gu Jiao went to the wounded barracks to visit Cheng Fugui and the others. She told them to take care of their injuries, and then went to Mu Qingchen's tent. However, Mu Qingchen was not in his own tent. She heard from the cavalry that he went to the periphery of the camp to practice swordsmanship. He once felt uncomfortable when he killed someone for the first time. He held the trunk of a tree and retched. Now he was still under the big tree. He was no longer troubled by killing people. Instead, he was working hard on how to kill more enemies. He stabbed out with his sword again and again, practicing his killing moves that would hit the target in one hit. His white robe could be a warm jade, but it could also be a murderous blade. Gu Jiao didn't disturb him. She quietly watched for a while, and then turned to leave. The Imperial Army was still in the city and hadn't arrived at the barracks for the time being. Gu Jiao didn't know that Shang Guanyin had come to the barracks. When she passed by Tang Yueshan's tent, she heard the sound of movement inside. It was so late. What was Tang Yueshan doing? Puzzled, she walked over and lifted the curtain to take a look inside. She saw Tang Yueshan hurriedly packing up his things. She asked, "Where are you going?" "It's only been a few days. Are you going to leave?" Tang Yueshan grabbed a few bottles of medicine and some dry food and put them in a bag. "I'm going to Puqing to find old Gu and hide for a few days." Gu Jiao tilted her head and looked at him strangely. "Why do you want to hide?" Tang Yueshan was not afraid of losing face. He said bluntly, "I sold old Xiao. If I don't hide, old Xiao may kill me." Gu Jiao. While packing up, Tang Yueshan recounted what had happened in the tent. "It's not all my fault. I didn't know his old flame was coming. I thought his old flame was the crown prince's daughter, so she should make some noise when she comes to the camp. I didn't expect her to go to him as soon as she arrived. She didn't even let anyone inform him. It's obvious that she wants to." He didn't finish his sentence. Tang Yueshan could talk freely in front of Marquis Xianping, but Gu Jiao was a girl. He knew that he couldn't dirty her ears. "Gu Jiao, Oh, the crown princess is here. Then the imperial army should have entered the city. Gu Jiao didn't think too much about why she went to find Marquis Xianping instead of informing him. That was between the two of them. She wouldn't interfere. Gu Jiao touched her chin. The Liang Kingdom's army is weak. It's unlikely that they will fight back. The next step is to drive the Liang Kingdom's army out of Yanmen Pass and take back the new city occupied by the Nangong family. Xuyang City is safe for now. I'll go to Puqing with you. Tang Yueshan asked. You're going too? Don't you want to stay here? Gu Jiao said. I'm not needed here for now. The Black Wind Cavalry had just fought a big battle. They wouldn't fight again for a while. Gu Jiao said. The information about Puqing is very important. It's better if more people go. Tang Yueshan agreed with him on this point. Jin was the most profound country among the 6 countries. Their military strength and financial resources were far better than the Liang Kingdom. They brought Gong Sunyu, who was much more difficult to deal with than Chu Feipeng. Okay, let's go find old Gu. By the way, he also wanted to see the scene of old Gu and the little girl recognizing each other. It must be wonderful. Tang Yueshan deliberately didn't tell Gu Jiao that her identity had been exposed to Gu Chao. He was waiting to see the good show between the two. Gu Jiao frowned and looked at him. I feel that you're holding back something bad. Was it that obvious? Tang Yueshan said seriously. I'm not. Don't talk nonsense. Gu Jiao also went back to the tent to pack some medicinal materials and tools. She also took a first aid kit and a set of night clothes. At this time, Sheng Guanyin was still in Marquis Xianping's tent. The candlelight was changed and couldn't illuminate her figure. Gu Jiao thought about it and didn't go in to disturb them. She went to tell advisor Hu and asked him to tell the crown princess and her father that she and old Tang were going to Puqing to spy on the military situation. She estimated that they would return in 3 to 5 days. Don't you want to go after seeing the crown princess? Advisor Hu was thinking for Gu Jiao. This was a good opportunity to show her face in front of the crown princess. The crown princess would definitely remember his lord's merit. However, if his lord left Xuyang and the imperial army or the border guards also made military contributions, his lord's glory might be taken away. Advisor Hu was thinking too much. Commander Xiao was the crown princess's daughter-in-law. What merit could there be? Who could surpass Gu Jiao? No, I'm leaving. Gu Jiao went to the tent. The Black Wind King had already woken up and was waiting for her energetically. In fact, Gu Jiao didn't intend to take the Black Wind King with her. She wanted it to rest for a few more days. However, the Black Wind King had already recovered and was ready for battle. It was determined to go with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao patted its neck and said, Okay, let's go together. Tang Yueshan came over on his Black Wind horse. The Black Wind horse was the most powerful warhorse in the 6 countries. After riding it, no other warhorse could be compared to it. The Black Wind horse was so powerful. She wondered how the Black Wind King would feel when riding it. Tang Yueshan coughed softly and said, Girl, let's make a deal. Let me ride your horse. Gu Jiao said, Can you let me use your bow? Tang Yueshan hurriedly protected the Tang bow on his back and said vigilantly, Only the heir of the Tang family is qualified to touch the Tang bow. You can't. Gu Jiao ignored him and mounted her horse. The Black Wind King suddenly attacked Tang Yueshan's horse. It raised its front hooves, which scared the Black Wind horse so much that its hair stood on end. Hey! Tang Yueshan hurriedly bent down to tighten the reins and calm the frightened Black Wind horse. Gu Jiao elegantly raised her hand and touched the Tang bow on his back. Here I touched it. Tang Yueshan was speechless. One big and one small galloped into the night. They left Xuyang City in the middle of the night and headed in the direction of Pu City. Gu Jiao knew a shortcut that would take them to Puqing before dawn. However, Puqing was occupied by the Jin army. It was not easy to sneak in. The two of them had to disguise themselves, and so did the 2 horses. At least, they couldn't let people know that they were the powerful Black Wind King and Black Wind Horse. Girl, will this really work? In a forest near the city gate, Tang Yueshan was smearing mud on the 2 horses under Gu Jiao's command. Gu Jiao was busy combing the Black Wind King's mane. Of course, the messier the mane the better. They had to look like they had escaped from a nearby city. Gu Jiao then disguised herself and Tang Yueshan. Are they father and daughter? Tang Yueshan asked. Gu Jiao glanced at him and said, They are young master and mute slave. Tang Yueshan was speechless. When everything was ready, the sun had risen. The battered and exhausted duo rode on the dirty and bleeding horses to the entrance of Pu City. Unlike Marquis Xianping, Tang Yueshan did not have a lover from the Yan Kingdom. He could not speak the language of the Yan Kingdom. Therefore, the mute slave was very suitable for him. There were already many people waiting in line at the city gate. Some of them were strong men captured by the Jin army from the surrounding areas. Some were villagers who sold vegetables and fodder for the Jin army. They were all selling the crops they had worked hard to grow at a very low price. There were also Jianghu people who were not afraid of death and returned to the city. Tang Yueshan whispered, Isn't it a bit unbelievable that we escaped from another city? Who would escape to the Jin army's territory? Traitors, Gu Jiao said. How could this work? I am here to join the Jin army. My father is from the Yan Kingdom, and my mother is from the Liang Kingdom. Just because the two countries were at war, they killed my mother cruelly. They want to kill me. They say I am a bastard of the Liang Kingdom. I am not convinced. Why? At the city gate, a young man who was about to enter the city broke down and cried. Tang Yueshan's mouth twitched. Was this really true? When it was Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan's turn, Gu Jiao's purse suddenly fell. She was about to dismount from the horse to pick it up when a fair and clean hand picked up her purse and handed it to her. Young man, you dropped something. It was a handsome young man. Gu Jiao took the purse. Thank you. It was a birthday gift from her great-aunt before she left. She had been carrying it with her. The young man smiled. Among the group of people entering the city, the young man's clothes were so clean that people could not help but take a second look at him. Gu Jiao's eyes followed him. He came to a carriage and said through the window, Young master, I didn't buy the candied haws you wanted to eat. The old lady didn't come out today. That was true. It meant that it was not the first time he came to buy candied haws. With the war going on, the old lady probably did not dare to come. However, this young man still insisted on waiting for her every day. The young man got into the carriage. The carriage slowly drove through the city gate. This person had nothing to do with her. Gu Jiao was about to look away. However, at this moment, a gust of wind blew and the curtain of the carriage window was lifted. Gu Jiao saw the incomparably handsome face in the carriage. Her eyes widened at once. Husband? No, Xiao Heng went to Tsangxue Pass. It was impossible for him to be here. That person was digression. Squatting for a wave of monthly votes. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1056686643. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 851. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet can be found here. What are you looking at? Tang Yueshan pulled Gu Jiao's sleeve, indicating the space in front of the horse. It's time to move forward. There was a large space in front of them, and the people in the line behind were impatient. Although they didn't want to enter the city, they can't earn more money if they enter later. It's better to finish early and go home to rest. Gu Jiao said. Nothing, I'm just looking around. Black Wind King took a few steps forward. At this time, the carriage had successfully passed the checkpoint at the city gate. The reason why it was smooth was because Gu Jiao found that the guards seemed to know the owner of the carriage and let him in without checking. There is only one person in the world who looks like my husband. But wasn't he arranged by Shangguan Yan to take refuge in a safe place? In order to not let him slip out, Shang Guanyin gave the guards a strict order. Of course, Gu Jiao felt that Shang Guanyin may not know her son's character very well. Even Wang Su could be fooled like that. The strange thing was, why was he at the border? And he looked like he was doing well in Pu City? What's going on? She didn't think she was wrong, but she also didn't think that guy had a reason to appear in the Jin army's territory. Both situations were unreasonable. What are you muttering about? Tang Yueshan whispered. You're so weird this early in the morning. Is it because the crown princess came and reminded you of your little husband? The crown princess was Xiao Heng's mother. It was normal to think of her when seeing her. Gu Jiao turned to look at him. How do you know that the crown princess is Xiao Heng's mother? Tang Yueshan didn't hide it. Empress Dowager Zhuang and the old chancellor said it. Otherwise, who would dare to think about such a big secret? Speaking of which, old Xiao is really lucky. I also know that he saved the female slave from Yin country. Gu Jiao asked curiously. How do you know? Tang Yueshan blurted out. I was there. Gu Jiao. Tang Yueshan's expression changed. Oh no, I let it slip. Sai, forget it. Since I've already leaked it, there's no harm in leaking more. Tang Yueshan heaved a long sigh. It's a little complicated. Do you think it was old Xiao who brought the crown princess back from the barracks? There are a few military prostitutes in the barracks, and one of them is an outstanding beauty. The subordinates don't dare to enjoy her for themselves, so the first thing they think of is to offer her to their boss? Needless to say, Gu Jiao did make such a guess. Actually no. Tang Yueshan waved his hand. In fact, Xiao Ji did not bring her back from the military camp. He brought her back from the underground dojo. At that time, the experts from the underground dojo from the 6 nations had gathered. Xiao Ji was not the number 1 of the 6 nations. The number 1 of the 6 nations had taken a fancy to that female slave and wanted to snatch her away. The female slave asked for help from Xiao Ji. Xiao Ji was a hero who could not resist the charms of a beautiful woman, so he challenged the number 1. The result was as one could imagine. The number 1 was beaten badly. At that time, Xiao Ji was not as strong as he was later. The price he had to pay to defeat the number 1 of the 6 nations was huge. He always thought that Xiao Ji had sent her away after playing with her. After all, Xiao Ji had always been a man who walked among thousands of flowers, but not a single leaf stuck to him. Who would have thought that the two of them had a child? However, Xiao Ji probably didn't know that when Shang Guanyin was locked in the cage of the underground dojo, she didn't casually ask him for help. As early as in the Great Yin Kingdom, Shang Guanyin had knocked off Xiao Ji's mask. Shang Guanyin saw Xiao Ji's face. He still remembered the little girl's stunned expression. My name is Yin. Who are you? Xiao Ji was seriously injured in the last duel. His 5 senses were damaged, so he didn't see or hear clearly. He didn't speak, just expressionlessly picked up the mask on the ground and put it on. Then he walked away without looking back. The young girl Shang Guanyin stared at Xiao Ji's back for a long time. That look, it's the same as when I look at my sister-in-law, Tang Yueshan added in his heart. After listening to Tang Yueshan's words, Gu Jiao was surprised. It turns out that the number 1 of the underground dojo in the capital is Marquis Xianping. No wonder he was always elusive. Ever since his waist was injured, he had never gone to that place again. Thinking of something, Gu Jiao asked again. Are you also in the underground dojo? Tang Yueshan straightened his back. Cough almost. Gu Jiao. Pay attention to your identity. Tang Yueshan's face darkened and his body bent a little. What was your rank? Gu Jiao asked again. Tang Yueshan laughed. I didn't participate in this boring duel. Gu Jiao squinted at him. It seems that your rank is very low. Hey, do you have to look down on me like that? I said I was too lazy to duel. If it weren't for the occasion, Tang Yueshan would have exploded on the spot. He made a gesture. The 3rd. In the underground dojo of the Zhao Kingdom, only the top 3 were qualified to go to the Yin Kingdom. Who's the 2nd? Gu Jiao asked. Tang Yueshan snorted. Who else could it be? But I know who they are, but they don't know who I am. This is my ability. Gu Jiao. So Gu Chongqing defeated you to get the qualification to go to the Yin Kingdom. Tang Yueshan. That's because I let him win. I knew he was Gu Changqing. Gu Jiao curled her lips. Hindsight. Tang Yueshan glared. I'm telling the truth. In the end, Tang Yueshan didn't have the chance to prove himself, because it was their turn. We came from Qiyang City. My grandfather is a businessman of the Jin Kingdom. My whole family was imprisoned by them. It was not easy for me to escape. Please let me go to the city to seek refuge. Gu Jiao was just reciting the lines this time. She didn't show her excellent acting skills. The effect was unexpectedly good. My grandfather has been in the Yan Kingdom for decades. I was born and raised in Qiyang City. I don't speak the Jin language well. As Gu Jiao spoke, she took out a bag of silver and gave it to the guard. The two entered the city. It's not as strict as I thought. Is it because the Jin army is not disciplined and the defense is loose? Or is it because the Jin army is not afraid of spies in the city? Gu Jiao thought while looking at the scene in Puqing. Pu City was a much larger and more prosperous city than Qiyang City. Its population was twice that of Qiyang City, and the amount of taxes it paid to the imperial court every year was 3 times that of Qiyang City. However, what Gu Jiao saw now was not what a large city should look like. The doors of the shops were closed, the streets were empty, and the signboards were torn to pieces by the Jin army. The city was bleeding. Let her go. You bastards. Let her go. Let her go. A woman's sobs and curses came from a shop not far away. She hugged the leg of a Jin soldier tightly. The soldier and his companion were dragging a beautiful and well-dressed little girl. The little girl was already half dizzy and had no strength to resist or cry. She could only let the 2 soldiers drag her into the alley. Judging from her clothes and jewelry, she was the daughter of a rich family. In the past, she was the center of attention. However, Puqing had become the territory of the Jin army. Her identity and status were not worth mentioning. It had been like this since ancient times. Jin Jun kicked the woman away and dragged the little girl into the depths of the alley with his belt. Who knew how many of these things had happened in places that they had not seen? Gu Jiao held the reins tightly. She was very angry. These Jin soldiers really made her angry. War is like this. Tang Yueshan sighed and raised his hand to block her eyes. Okay, don't look. I will take care of it. Saying so, he dismounted and entered the alley. With his martial arts, it was easy for him to take care of the 2 Jin soldiers. In the blink of an eye, the 2 Jin soldiers died in his hands. He found a place to dispose of the bodies. The woman who had fainted woke up and ran into the alley to take her daughter away. The 2 were so scared that they forgot to thank him. When they reacted and wanted to kowtow to their benefactor, Tang Yueshan had already returned to his horse and left with Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao rode on the black wind horse and walked on the deserted street. She said, the situation in Puqing is worse than expected. When the Nangong family took over Qiyang City, they used the banner of killing the tyrant, restoring order, and stabilizing the country. Thus, they treated the people well. The Jin army did not have any fear. They were here to invade. The people of the Yan Kingdom were not people. They were resources that they could take away at will. We must end the war as soon as possible. She said seriously. Someone is coming. Tang Yueshan said. The 2 dismounted. A group of about 100 Jin soldiers walked towards them. The leader was a corporal. When the 2 passed by, the corporal just glanced at them. A poor young master and a servant, there was nothing to be concerned about. The corporal left with his men. After making sure they were far away, Tang Yueshan said, I have been here for so long and I still don't know where old Gu is. If I knew I would come, I would have asked him to give me a signal. Gu Jiao said indifferently, we will investigate ourselves. The investigation is secondary. The main thing is that I want to see you 2 betray each other. Tang Yueshan's strong desire to live made him suppress the words. Where are you going to investigate? He asked. The mayor's mansion. Gu Jiao said. Tang Yueshan almost choked. He thought that Gongsun Yu probably lived in the mayor's mansion. There were many masters there. Even he did not dare to be so arrogant. You are really bold. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. All the valuable information of the Jin army was in the mayor's mansion. Thus, Even if the mayor's mansion was a dragon's pool and a tiger's den, they had to go. You don't have to go, Gu Jiao said. This war has nothing to do with the Tang family. Xiao Heng was the son of Marquis Xianping. It was reasonable for him to help his son conquer the Yin kingdom. Tang Yueshan did not have to risk his life. Tang Yueshan snorted coldly. Who are you looking down on? A girl dared to go, but he, the marshal, dared not? Seeing this, Gu Jiao did not say anything more. The two of them went to the mayor's mansion and found an empty courtyard to settle down the Black Wind King and the Black Wind Cavalry. Why do I feel that you are so familiar with the border? Have you been here before? Kind of. She was killed in the Puching city in that chaotic battle. She was killed by a peacock feather sword. Her heart was pierced from the back. The owner of the sword was a very powerful swordsman. He was dressed in black and wore a bronze mask with fangs. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1056470093. HTML Genius memorized the website's address. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile version website. Chapter 852. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. This war was 9 years earlier than the one in the dream, and many details had changed accordingly. For example, the Liang Kingdom's combat power was not as strong as in the dream. On one hand, the Yin Kingdom had become stronger, and on the other hand, the second fierce general of the Liang Kingdom was still on the way to being subdued. If the war really started 9 years later, they would have to deal with Chu Feiping and that fierce general. Therefore, the Jin Kingdom's military deployment would not be the same as 7 years later. This was also the reason why Gu Jiao had to come to spy on the military situation. Gu Jiao's red tasseled spear was too eye-catching, so she left it in the military camp in Xuyang City. Her weapon was the whip she took from Gu Qingfeng. Tang Yueshan's Tang Bao was not as low-key, but he could not bear to part with his treasure and insisted on carrying it with him. He could only wrap it in cloth. Fortunately, he was a warrior and mute slave, so it was not a big problem. Tang Yueshan checked the Tang Bao 800 times a day. After checking it again, he clapped his hands in satisfaction and said, "Okay, let's go to the mayor's mansion and lie in ambush. We'll move when it's dark." When they were at the border of the Zhao Kingdom, the mayor's mansion was heavily guarded, but it was different here. Either Gong Sunyu did not live in the mayor's mansion, or Gong Sunyu had absolute confidence that no one could break in. The first point was quickly rejected, because when they were lying in ambush in an empty grain store near the mayor's mansion, they saw a group of people coming out of the mansion's gate. There was a carriage and 20 guards on horseback accompanying them. Gu Jiao recognized the leader of the guards at a glance. Gong Sunyu had 4 fierce generals under his command. They were Min Hongyi, the solitary swordsman, Jie Xingzhou, the Iron Fist, Zhu Zhongquang, and Lu Yi, who was good at hidden weapons and formations. This man was Min Hongyi, the solitary swordsman. Gu Jiao thought to herself. She did not expect Min Hongyi to be by Gong Sunyu's side so early. She wondered if the other 3 had also been recruited by Gong Sunyu. Aside from Gong Sunyu, there was no one else who could make Min Hongyi willingly escort him. Gu Jiao used her fingertip to write on the dusty table, Gong Sunyu. Although Tang Yueshan was surprised at how Gu Jiao came to this conclusion, he still held his breath. The person in the carriage did not emit any aura. If not for Gu Jiao's reminder, he would have thought that the person sitting inside was an ordinary person. This meant that Gong Sunyu was already strong enough to restrain his aura. It was always harder to collect than to let go. For example, the appearance of Chongjing was often accompanied by a very powerful and terrifying aura, but Long Yu was able to make people unable to sense his existence. The two of them had originally planned to follow Gong Sunyu, but now they gave up on that idea. Tang Yueshan clearly understood how monstrous a person at this level was, and Gu Jiao had seen Gong Sunyu in action before. Adding Min Hongyi to the mix, their chances of winning were not high. After Gong Sunyu and his group left, the two of them waited for a while. When it was time to change shifts, they sneaked into the mansion. Before the two of them could get a firm footing, Gu Jiao discovered the second expert, the mighty King Kong Jiexingzhou. No wonder he didn't send a large number of guards. Gong Sunyu himself was a peerless expert. With Min Hongyi and Jiexingzhou, there was no assassin who could harm Gong Sunyu in the mansion. The two of them stuck close to the fake mountain wall. Tang Yueshan asked with his eyes, "With that expert around, it's not easy for us to move. We'll be discovered." Gu Jiao frowned. If only he went out. Tang Yueshan, "Forgive me for being blunt, but you're too naive." Then, Jiexingzhou heard a servant report something. It was probably something that happened in the military camp. He led a few of his personal guards and rode out of the mansion. Tang Yueshan was speechless. "Little girl, what kind of luck do you have?" There was no other freakishly strong expert in the mansion. The two of them carefully sneaked into Gong Sunyu's study. Wow, this Gong Sunyu really likes to collect weapons. Tang Yueshan looked at the room full of weapons and couldn't help but exclaim. Gu Jiao said calmly, "Every time Gong Sunyu kills an expert, he takes away their weapon." To others, these weapons were evidence of his crimes. But to Gong Sunyu, these weapons were medals that symbolized his path to becoming a powerful expert. Tang Yueshan felt a chill run down his spine. Killing people was one thing, but collecting the weapons of the dead? What was wrong with him? "Found it," Gu Jiao said. "What?" Tang Yueshan put down the weapon in his hand and came over. He saw that Gu Jiao had already dug out the Jin Nation's military deployment map and a thick file. This should be the army's marching record. Gu Jiao said thoughtfully, "All the information about the Jin Nation's army is here." This was a very valuable clue. Tang Yueshan thought for a moment. Then should we take it away? It was possible to take it away, but Gong Sunyu would discover that someone had been here. Then the contents of the file and the military deployment map would be changed. There wouldn't be enough time to copy it. She could only memorize it. If she could read the Jin Nation's language, it would be much easier. Unfortunately, she didn't. She could only use her memory to memorize their shapes. In her previous life, she had trained in this skill in the organization. Her speed and accuracy were second only to the Godfather. However, she had never memorized such a large number of unfamiliar characters. Gu Jiao closed her eyes and focused all her attention on engraving the contents of the dossier into her mind. Tang Yueshan was dumbfounded. "No way. You're capable of this? How could a person who had fought so many wars still have such a good brain? Was she trying to kill him?" After memorizing the last character, Gu Jiao's head started to hurt like it was about to explode. Tang Yueshan saw that her face was pale and quickly asked, "Are you okay?" Gu Jiao supported herself with one hand on the table and the other hand on her forehead. "I overused my brain. I'll be fine after some rest." Tang Yueshan was an uneducated person. He thought that Gu Jiao was impressive for being able to memorize the contents of the file, but he didn't know how impressive she was. If the scholars of the imperial court were here, they would probably kneel down before Gu Jiao. Her brain power had long surpassed the limits of a normal person. "Let's go. There's no more useful information here." Gu Jiao had just taken a step when her head started to hurt so badly that she almost fainted. Fortunately, Tang Yueshan was quick enough to catch her. "So it's true that scholars are weak. Look at you. You haven't even finished 2 pages of the book. You're even weaker than if you had just fought a war." Tang Yueshan complained about Gu Jiao in disdain, but his actions were honest. He turned the bow in front of him and carried Gu Jiao on his back. At this moment, Gu Jiao was enduring the pain in her head, deepening the memory of those characters in her mind over and over again. She distracted herself a little and said to Tang Yueshan, "I can't be interrupted." Okay. You remember what you said." Tang Yueshan decisively shut up and stopped talking to her. He carried Gu Jiao on his back and used his qinggong to leave the Castellan mansion. As soon as they left, Jie Xingzhou came back. Tang Yueshan hid in the alley and watched the Jin soldiers riding away. He heaved a sigh of relief. However, what Tang Yueshan didn't expect was that when they went to get their horses, they were seen by 2 Jin soldiers who had just robbed the people in the city. Even though they had escaped from the masters of the Castellan mansion, they bumped into each other face to face. No one was allowed to come close to this area. Trespassers would be killed. The 2 Jin soldiers immediately became vigilant. One pulled out his sword to stop them, and the other blew a bone whistle to warn them. Tang Yueshan thought, "It's over. It's all over now. Can you still ride a horse?" Tang Yueshan turned to ask Gu Jiao, who was lying on his back. Gu Jiao calmed down and said, "Yes." "Good. You'd better sit tight." Tang Yueshan put Gu Jiao on Black Wind King's horse and got on the horse himself. They might not be able to get out of the city tonight. Fortunately, Puching was so big that they could get rid of their pursuers and get a buffer. The Jin army was so strong that they had sent hundreds of soldiers just to catch 2 suspicious people. Tang Yueshan ran all the way and couldn't help but look back. He saw the black mass of soldiers chasing after him and Gu Jiao. His eyebrows twitched. "Are you serious? It's just 2 people. Is there a need to send so many people?" He looked at Gu Jiao, who was holding the reins tightly, and said, "Girl, there are too many of them. We'll be in trouble if they catch up with us." Yes, she couldn't let them catch up with her. She had a terrible headache and couldn't fight with all her strength. She pulled the reins. "Boss, to the east." "Shoot." Jin Jun's shout came from behind them. Then, arrows that blotted out the sky and covered the earth shot towards the 2 of them. Black Wind King turned to the right side of the alley, and the Black Wind cavalry followed him. The arrows hit the wooden boards and wooden doors of the shops. One of the arrows missed Tang Yueshan's head by half an inch. Fortunately, the Black Wind cavalry turned quickly. Gu Jiao said, "Boss, keep going straight." They walked out of the city center and into the suburbs. There were more valleys and forests, so it was easy to hide. Black Wind King ran as fast as he could. Under his lead, the Black Wind cavalry also ran at a speed that was impossible for them. Tang Yueshan felt like he was flying. The first wave of Jin army had been left far behind. However, they used the whistle as a signal, and the soldiers along the way kept coming to intercept them. The Black Wind King scattered one group after another, shaking off wave after wave of enemies. He took the lead and was fearless. When they entered a valley, the boat suddenly came out from a small path. This guy took a shortcut to chase after them. Tang Yueshan's temples twitched. Seeing that they were about to collide, the Black Wind King suddenly accelerated, raised its front hooves, and jumped over the head of the self-dismembering boat in a domineering manner. Jie Xingzhou's broadsword slashed across the air. Tang Yueshan's Black Wind cavalry also took advantage of his unprepared state and rushed past him. Jie Xingzhou tightened the reins and frowned at the horse that dodged his attack. He couldn't believe it. That war horse was too outstanding. He really wanted to take it and give it to the Lord. Unfortunately, "General, should we chase after them?" a soldier asked. Jie Xingzhou looked at the 2 people disappearing into the valley and said, "No, it's the Ghost Mountain." The Ghost Mountain was a forbidden area in Pu City. It was often haunted. It was said that no one who stepped on the Ghost Mountain came back alive. Suddenly, there was a rush of horse hooves behind them. Then there was a rough man's laughter. "Ha, Jie Zhoudian. It's just a small mountain." As the Lord's first general, you actually believe in ghosts? Jie Xingzhou's name was Zhoudian. Jie Xingzhou turned around and frowned at him. "Minhongi, didn't you go to the army camp with the Lord?" Minhongi smiled arrogantly. "I just came back. I heard that there were 2 powerful thieves in the city. Your men almost ran their horses to death but couldn't catch them. So, I came to help you." Although the 2 of them were Gong Sun Yu's confidants, they had always been fighting for the position of the first general. Jie Xingzhou ignored his sarcasm and said, "They entered the Ghost Mountain. There's no way they can come out alive." Min Hongi said sarcastically, "I don't believe in this. I only want to see them if they're alive. If they're dead, I want to see their bodies. If you don't dare to chase after them, I will." Min. "General Min." All the subordinates saluted with their fists. Min Hongi shouted, Follow me into the ghost mountain. Everyone answered in unison, yes. General Min. Min Hongyi smiled with satisfaction, then showed a proud look to Jie Zhoutian. Did you see that? These are the real men of the great Jin dynasty. Your subordinates only know how to do some sneaky things. When it comes to serious business, they're not reliable at all. Jie Xingzhou said calmly. Don't speak too soon. Even the Lord hasn't thought of barging into the ghost mountain. Don't throw your men's lives away just because you're angry with me. If you want to be a bastard, be it yourself. I'm going to catch the assassins. With that, Min Hongyi led the 500 soldiers into Ghost Mountain valiantly. Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan passed through the valley and entered a dense forest. The sky gradually darkened. Occasionally, the cawing of crows could be heard from above. Tang Yueshan sat on his horse and shivered. He looked around and whispered, Girl, don't you feel that this place is eerie? No. Gu Jiao looked at the forest scenery around her. It's very cool. This place gave her a very familiar feeling. Are you afraid of ghosts? Gu Jiao looked at Tang Yueshan strangely. Tang Yueshan snorted. How is that possible? Gu Jiao's eyes widened as she pointed behind Tang Yueshan. Ah, there's a ghost. Whoa. Tang Yueshan jumped onto Gu Jiao's horse. Gu Jiao. Black Wind King. Digression. So you're like this old Tang_Shangguanqing. Monthly votes. Don't I need to show off when I show up? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1056455956. HTML Genius memorized this site's address. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. Chapter 853. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. The novels that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Xuyang City. Shang Guanyan came out of the city lord's residence and got on the carriage to the military camp. It has been a day and a night since Gu Jiao left for Pu City. She wanted to see if Gu Jiao had come back. In addition, the day after tomorrow, the Imperial Army will attack the remnants of the Liang Kingdom's army. She wanted to go to the military camp to boost the morale of the army. Xuyang City has restored order. Although the panic of the war still shrouded the people's heads, when they thought of the great Yan's crown princess going to war on behalf of the emperor, the people were full of faith in the imperial family and the imperial court. The wheels of the carriage turned, and the body of the carriage swayed. Shang Guanyan sat quietly in the carriage without saying a word. Huan was enjoying the local customs of the border with interest. She had never been far away, so everything she saw was novel. Your Highness, the biscuits they sell are very strange, Huan said while looking at Shang Guanyan on the carriage seat. Shang Guanyan didn't hear her words and was still in a daze. Huan slowly put down the curtain, leaving only a narrow gap for the light of the thousands of lights to come in. She hesitated for a moment and asked softly, Your Highness, are you thinking about that man? Ha! Shang Guanyan's consciousness returned. What? That man? The father of His Highness Zhongsun, Huan said. As the crown princess's trusted maid, Huan gradually won Shang Guanyan's trust. She knew the identity of Xiaoheng and Shang Guanqing, and also knew that the handsome man was the biological father of the two little princes. Shang Guanyan said, What do I think of him for? Huan said, You came out so fast that night like, he fled in panic. Huan held back these few words. Shang Guanyan murmured, Fast? I feel like I talked to him a lot. Huan said bluntly, That's because you were avoiding him, so you felt that every sentence was very long. But in fact, you didn't even ask each other how they were doing these years. Huan was simple, not stupid. As an outsider, she could see things more clearly than Shang Guanyan. That night, the two of them didn't know how to face each other. They were both dumbfounded. The crown princess was originally going to live in the barracks. The reason she moved into the city lord's mansion was to avoid that lord. Shang Guanyin lowered her eyes, lightly straightened her wide sleeves and said, "What's there to ask? It's already like this." Huaner was silent for a while and then asked, "Then do you still like him?" Shang Guanyin sat up straight, as if she was talking to Huaner, but also as if she was talking to herself. "I am the crown princess of Great Yen. I will not fall in love with any man." When the carriage arrived at the military camp, Shang Guanyin first asked the guard at the gate, and learned that Gu Jiao had not returned. She then went to the place where the soldiers were training. Huaner watched as her crown princess, and that lord's tent walked further and further away. Shang Guanyin. But in the end he couldn't avoid it. Marquis Xianping strode over. Shang Guanyin's expression paused, as if she was a little hesitant. Then, she continued to walk forward expressionlessly. Marquis Xianping caught up with her, and blocked her way. He looked at her and narrowed his eyes. "Shang Guanyin, are you hiding from this marquis?" Shang Guanyin looked at the soldiers who were training in the night and calmly said, "Hiding from you? Don't think too highly of yourself. What do you have that makes this lord hide from you?" Marquis Xianping's face was full of disbelief. "Then why did you run away so fast that night?" Shang Guanyin lightly said, "Who told you to be so annoying?" Good, this marquis is annoying." Marquis Xianping put his hands behind his back and looked at her casually. "As long as you tell this marquis where this marquis' son is, this marquis will never bother you again." Shang Guanyin snorted and said, "Didn't your son go to Tsongshui Pass to negotiate with the Qin country's army?" Marquis Xianping said, "You know this marquis is not talking about this son." Shang Guanyin sneered and said, "That's right, your Xiao Ji is a romantic by nature. You have more than one son, Aheng." Marquis Xianping looked at her deeply and meaningfully said, "Shang Guanyin, you aren't jealous, right?" Shang Guanyin sternly said, "This one is the crown princess. This one has a harem of 3,000 men. Would this one be jealous of you?" "That's good." Shang Guanyin coldly glared at him and walked forward with a cold expression. Marquis Xianping stepped to the side and stopped her. His eyes were a little solemn. It was very different from his previous unruly appearance. "Where is Xiaoqing?" Shang Guanyin turned her face and looked at the army in front of her. "If you want to know the whereabouts of your son, use Chu Fei Peng in exchange." Marquis Xianping laughed. "Chu Fei Peng, right? Okay, I'll give it to you." After that, his smile disappeared. "Where is this marquis' son?" Shang Guanyin clenched her fingers and said with a dignified expression, "Qing'er is in a villa near Chengdu. When the situation stabilizes, I will bring him back." Son of a bitch. On the other side, in Pu City's Ghost Mountain, Min Hong led his men to search in the forest. As a result, a group of men got lost. A soldier pointed to the knife mark on the big tree next to him. "General Min, there is a mark we just made here. We went back to the original road." Min Hong frowned. People who lead troops to war have a good sense of direction, but they don't know what's wrong with this forest. The trees grow the same, the sun in the sky has set, and the moon and the stars haven't come out yet. It's really hard to tell the direction. Just by relying on their experience, it's reasonable to say that they can go out. But after walking for a while, they unexpectedly return to the original place. Damn it, it's really strange. Whoosh. A soldier suddenly felt a shadow flashing by from the side. He quickly turned his head. Who is it? However, only a dark and quiet forest came into view. "Old Five, what's wrong with you?" His companion patted his arm in amusement. "You're so nervous, your courage can't be that small, right?" Another companion also smiled and said, "Yes, this place is called Ghost Mountain. Is there really a ghost? Even if there is such a thing, why should we be afraid of ghosts if we follow Mindarin?" These words touched the bottom of Min Hong's heart. That's right, Min Hong is not afraid of anything. He can kill the heavens and expel evil spirits. What bullshit Ghost Mountain? It's just a rumor made up by a group of cowardly rats. What is there to be afraid of? The strange feeling in Min Hong's heart was dispelled. He didn't know if his courage scared the world, but even the dark clouds above his head were blown away by the cold wind. The moment the moon came out, everyone secretly breathed a sigh of relief. They are back in the world of the living. Who would have thought that before they could finish their sigh of relief, a soldier behind the team screamed, "Xiao Luo is gone. He was talking to me just now." Suddenly disappeared. Everyone's heart sank. Min Hongyi's eyes were cold as he gripped the saber at his waist. 5 people in a group, go together. The Jin soldiers put away their weapons and held each other's arms. This way they would be safe. After all, 5 of them can't disappear at the same time. "Hey girl, how much longer do we have to walk?" Tang Yueshan, who was scared half to death by the ghosts, calmly sat back on his horse. He said that he did that to protect her, not because he was scared. Soon, Gu Jiao said, "There should be a cave up ahead. Let's take shelter there for the night." Gu Jiao's familiarity with the terrain of the border was outrageous. Tang Yueshan only thought that she had done her homework in advance and memorized all the maps. Tang Yueshan tightened his grip on the reins and sighed. "Speaking of which, we've been in Puching for a day, but we haven't seen old Gu. Where do you think he went? Could he have gone to the army camp? Gong Sun Yu also went to the army camp today. Old Gu can't be so unlucky as to run into Gong Sun Yu, right? Hey girl, why aren't you saying anything? Can't you at least say something?" Tang Yueshan turned his head to look at Gu Jiao bitterly, but all he saw was the empty forest. His voice was stuck in his throat. The forest began to fog. The moonlight above their heads could not be seen. Without a reference, one's sense of direction would weaken. Black Wind King was a brave horse, but it did not grow up in the forest. This was a very strange environment for Black Wind King. Gu Jiao found that they were separated earlier than Tang Yueshan, but she couldn't shout. Otherwise, it would be hard to tell whether Tang Yueshan or the Jin soldiers would come first. This place is a bit unusual. Gu Jiao looked around. She had no basis. It was just an intuition that she had trained in danger. Whoosh! A black shadow flashed behind her. Gu Jiao's ears twitched, but her expression did not change. She signaled Black Wind King to keep moving forward. Whoosh! Another shadow flashed behind her. Gu Jiao did not stop. One person and one horse walked forward calmly. Whoosh! 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 The shadows seemed to be irritated. They flashed here and there, trying to make Gu Jiao fearful. Gu Jiao did not even lift her eyelids. Haha, the living people who came to our ghost mountain are so powerful. Look, he's not afraid. His horse is not afraid. I want to eat his horse. Silly, how can a horse taste good? I haven't smelled a living person in the netherworld for a long time. It's so fragrant. Tonight the gates of hell will open, and the king of hell will come. We little ghosts can taste a living person. Haha, little ghosts? Indeed. Gu Jiao did not seem to hear their conversation. She continued to walk deeper into the forest with Black Wind King. She hadn't even taken 2 steps when a large net suddenly fell from above her head. Gu Jiao pulled out the whip from her waist and lashed it in a certain direction in the night. The whip made a cracking sound in the air. Almost at the same time, a pale little figure was caught by Gu Jiao's whip. Gu Jiao tied him to the horse's back. When the net fell, Gu Jiao raised her hand and grabbed it, throwing it far away. This kind of small trick was barely enough to deal with Tang Yueshan, who was afraid of ghosts. She was not afraid of ghosts. Gu Jiao looked at the little black impermanence on her horse. She asked, "Who are you?" Whoosh! The other shadows in the forest scattered and disappeared without a trace. Little black impermanence had a long tongue in his mouth. He struggled to say, "I'm Black Impermanence. Don't you dare offend me. His Highness Ghost King will eat you." He was really called Black Impermanence. Gu Jiao flicked his forehead. Little Black Impermanence cried out, "Ouch!" Gu Jiao chuckled. Are ghosts afraid of pain? Little Black Impermanence was speechless for a moment. He spat out his long tongue and said, "I'm still young. You're an adult. Your young energy is too strong. If you touch me, you'll burn my body. That's why I'm screaming." After he finished, he stuffed his tongue back in again. It was quite logical. Gu Jiao gave him a thumbs up in her heart. How old are you? Gu Jiao asked. 7. Little Black Impermanence regretted his words. He quickly changed his words. 700 years old. Gu Jiao's mouth twitched. She said seriously, I'll give you 2 choices. 1, take me to see your king. It's the Ghost King. Little Black Impermanence pulled out his long tongue and said fiercely, the Ghost King of the underworld. He has supreme divine power. He can eat 100 living people like you. It's the same. Gu Jiao waved her hand. 2, hand over my companions. Little Black Impermanence said, we didn't catch your companions. Gu Jiao said indifferently, it seems like you want to choose the first option. Little Black Impermanence snorted, you're the one who doesn't have the right to see our Ghost King. Our Ghost King. Ah. He was halfway through his words when Gu Jiao suddenly grabbed him. He was so scared that he lost his voice and screamed. An arrow stuck close to the saddle and shot past the place where he had just been lying down. With a clang, it nailed itself into a large tree beside him. The arrow's tail left a shadow behind. It was obvious how strong it was. If it wasn't for Gu Jiao's quick reaction, Little Black Impermanence would have been turned into a human skewer. Little Black Impermanence was so scared that he lost his voice. Gu Jiao put him back on the saddle. She coldly looked at the group of people walking towards them. It was none other than the Jin army that had been chasing them all this time. What surprised Gu Jiao was that the leader wasn't Jie Xingzhou, but Min Hongyi. If it was Jie Xingzhou, she could still deal with him with words. However, Min Hongyi was just like Gong Sunyu. He was a war maniac through and through. Min Hongyi laughed wickedly. So you're in cahoots with these pretentious fellows. I was wondering why you guys didn't go anywhere. Why did you run here? Gu Jiao calmly met his sharp and oppressive gaze. She said, he has nothing to do with me. Let him go. Let him go so you can call for reinforcements? Do you think I'm stupid? Min Hongyi said coldly. He took a bow from his subordinate and shot an arrow at Little Black Impermanence in Gu Jiao's arms. The Black Wind King leaped forward and dodged the arrow. Min Hongyi shot another arrow, but it was sent flying by Gu Jiao's whip. Min Hongyi was furious. He threw the bow away and pulled out the broadsword at his waist. He said with a fierce gaze, fine, then I'll kill you with my own hands. He still underestimated me. Perhaps I could make use of this opportunity. Gu Jiao didn't move. She looked like she was scared silly by his aura. When Min Hongyi flew up, his long sword was about to land on Gu Jiao's head. Gu Jiao swung the whip in her hand and wrapped it around the hilt of his sword. She threw his long sword out fiercely. The long sword was in the air. Min Hongyi was also sent flying. Min Hongyi had indeed underestimated his opponent. This brat looked very young and didn't have any internal energy when he attacked. He had only used 10% of his internal energy. In the end, he was sent flying. Min Hongyi flew into a rage out of humiliation. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and used the tree trunk as a stepping stone to stabilize himself. He once again slashed at Gu Jiao with his longsword. This time he didn't underestimate his opponent. Gu Jiao had to dodge. Otherwise, the force from their fight would hurt this child and Black Wind King. Sit tight. Gu Jiao jumped off her horse and took a few big steps forward. She wrapped her whip around Min Hongyi's waist. This brat's strength actually managed to tie me down. Min Hongyi frowned. He was surprised by the strength of Gu Jiao's arms. At the same time, he was very excited. Killing an opponent like this was more interesting, wasn't it? Min Hongyi smiled coldly. He changed the direction of his longsword and slashed at Gu Jiao's whip. The whip was cut in half. Gu Jiao took a few steps back due to inertia. 9 years later, she had the strength to kill Min Hongyi. But now Min Hongyi was a big problem. Min Hongyi looked up to the sky and laughed. Brat, what else do you have? Gu Jiao said. I'm so powerful. Can you really bear to kill me? Min Hongyi was stunned. Gu Jiao said patiently. Why don't you bring me back and give me to your Gong Sunyu? With my help, you can definitely compete with Jie Xingzhou. This brat was a rare talent. If he really whoosh. Gu Jiao waved her hand and shot out the Tanghua needle in her hand. Min Hongyi was skilled in martial arts. Unfortunately, his brain wasn't as good as Jie Xingzhou's. No wonder he was always suppressed by Jie Xingzhou. Min Hongyi blocked with his longsword. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. A Tanghua needle hit his abdomen. There was poison on the needle. Min Hongyi hurriedly sealed the major acupoints on the wound to prevent the poison from spreading. Brat, you've really angered me. I originally wanted to give you a quick death, but now I've changed my mind. I'm going to cut off your arms and break all the bones in your body. Then, I'm going to chop off your head. Wah! Little Black Impermanence started crying. Min Hongyi was in a fit of anger. The child's crying annoyed him. He swung his long sword at Little Black Impermanence's head. He was attacking head-on. No matter if Black Wind King attacked or retreated, Little Black Impermanence would still be hit. How despicable. He didn't even let off a child. It was no wonder that Jing Kong chopped off his arms and legs. Gu Jiao's eyes flashed. She jumped and threw Little Black Impermanence off the horse. She hugged Little Black Impermanence and rolled on the ground a few times. Min Hongyi took the opportunity to swing his longsword a second time. His speed was so fast that Gu Jiao couldn't dodge at all. Was she going to die here? If Gu Jiao wanted to live, there was only one way. She had to throw the child out to block the attack. Gu Jiao didn't do that. Clang. Something hit Min Hongyi's longsword. Min Hongyi's longsword was knocked aside. His entire arm went numb. Who's there? He turned his head and angrily stared into the darkness. In the fog, a man dressed in a black robe and wearing a ghost mask was sitting on a carriage carried by 18 wraiths. He was slowly approaching them. The gauze on the carriage danced in the night wind. In the eerie forest, there was an inexplicable aura of 100 ghosts walking at night. A slender hand was exposed under his wide sleeves. It rested lightly on the armrest. The joints were distinct and exquisite. However, it was too white, which added to the ghostly aura. At the front of the carriage stood two people dressed as Black Impermanence and White Impermanence. A sudden gust of wind blew in the night, making the entire forest eerie. The Jin soldiers looked at each other and almost involuntarily took 2 steps back. Min Hongyi scolded disdainfully. Who are you? Stop pretending to be a ghost in front of me. Pretending to be a ghost? The man's thin lips curled up. He held onto the armrest and stood up with a smile. It was just a simple stand-up, but the branches around him moved without any wind. It was as if the malicious ghosts on the trees were responding to him with fear and devotion. The Jin soldiers felt even more scared. They looked up at the dark branches above them. Was there really a ghost on the tree? It's bleeding. The tree is bleeding. One of the Jin soldiers shouted. The surrounding trees all began to bleed. The thick smell of blood filled the entire forest. This was not the end. The birds in the forest seemed to be unable to withstand the attack of the death aura. One by one they fell down. In an instant, the ground was covered with bird corpses. One of the Jin soldiers fell to the ground in fright. Little Black Impermanence poked his head out of Gu Jiao's arms and pointed at Min Hongyi. He cried loudly, Your Highness Ghost King. He's a bad person. He wants to kill me. He did not dare to run over. He was worried that Min Hongyi would kill him halfway. After he finished speaking, he shrank back into Gu Jiao's arms. What a cowardly little Black Impermanence. The man's dangerous gaze fell on Min Hongyi. Then he stepped forward and casually stepped on the guardrail of the carriage. A fierce and domineering aura suddenly erupted from his body. Gu Jiao. Why does this little aura seem a bit familiar? It reminds me of someone. The man said indifferently. You dare to come to my territory and kill my subordinates. You've got guts. Trespassing on Ghost Mountain is already a capital offense. Now that you've committed an additional crime, why don't I skin you alive and make you into a human skin lantern? The Jin army shuddered at the same time. This guy was too good at shaking the morale of the soldiers. They could not let him continue acting like a ghost. Otherwise, before the battle even started, his subordinates would be scared off. Min Hongyi shouted. Don't you try to bluff here. With just a few of you. Do you think you can stop my 500-strong army? How many? The man curled his lips and waved his wide sleeves. Little ghosts, come out. Tonight, the gates of hell will open. All the living people are yours. As soon as he finished speaking, Min Hongyi sensed that something was wrong. He looked around and saw a large group of armored ghost soldiers on the trees, on the hills, and in the woods. Min Hongyi's expression changed. This is, the man said coldly. 3,000 ghost soldiers. Kill them all. Leave none alive. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that you can't find online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428226/1056238886. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. Chapter 854. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. The fog dissipated and the forest became pitch black. With the Ghost King's order, the surrounding ghost soldiers approached the Jin Nation army in the forest with the aura of death. The Jin army was not weak, and could even be said to be very brave and good at fighting. The Jin dynasty was related to the Turks in history. The largest tribe took over the imperial power, and exiled the other tribes that refused to submit. This was how the Turks came to be. The reason why the Turks were not recognized by the 6 states was more or less related to the Jin dynasty. The people of Jin Nation had a warlike bloodline in their bones. If they were on a regular battlefield, the 500 soldiers might be able to defeat 3 times their number. However, at this moment, the Jin Nation soldiers had long been scared silly by the various signs. The branches and leaves that moved without wind, the trees that were bleeding for no reason, the birds' corpses that fell to the ground after being swallowed by the aura of death. All of them made one's hair stand on end. Did they really come to the netherworld? Were these ghost soldiers that suddenly appeared malicious spirits that came out from the gates of hell? These ghost soldiers were not wearing brand new armors. Instead, their armors were broken. Many of them were covered in dust, rust, and dried bloodstains. But the more they were like this, the more they felt that this was a ghost army that had been destroyed on the battlefield. They could not forget the mission that they could not complete in the world of the living after falling to the netherworld. Thus, they did not drink the water of the river of forgetfulness, did not drink Granny Meng's soup, and did not cross the bridge of helplessness. Every night, they repeated the obsession before death. Kill the invaders, kill them all. One of the Jin soldiers could not take it anymore. His legs went soft and he fell to the ground. At the same time, the fluffy and soft soil suddenly moved. A white skeleton claw emerged and grabbed the Jin soldier's ankle. This Jin soldier was scared out of his wits. He turned around and scrambled in the direction he came from. But before he could take a step, he was frightened by the skeleton claw that came out of the soil one after another. The gates of hell are open. There are really ghosts. Another Jin army soldier was so frightened that he collapsed. Emotions were contagious. When one person collapsed, there would be a second, then a third, a fourth, until the morale of the entire army collapsed. Scholars say, Confucius does not speak of strange forces, chaotic spirits. But the scholars also said that the gods were watching from above. They were the invaders of the Yin kingdom. The ghosts of the Yin kingdom's Yin soldiers would never let them go. Fighting with the living is not scary, because the living will die. However, the ghost soldiers were already dead. They could not afford to die again. The Jin army totally collapsed. Some cried, some fled. Only a third of them were fighting bravely. These soldiers were nothing in the face of the massive number of ghost soldiers, not to mention the fact that they were only calm on the surface, but their hearts had already collapsed. Gu Jiao and Black Impermanence sat under the tree. A skeletal claw broke through the ground and grabbed Gu Jiao's right ankle. Gu Jiao grunted and unceremoniously pulled out the skeletal claw, the skeleton that suddenly lost its hand. Are you polite? Oh, it's really the skeleton of a dead person. Gu Jiao took a look at it and with a click, she attached it to the skeleton on the ground. The skeleton. Fine, I'll leave. When Min Hongyi saw his soldiers collapsing one by one, he was so angry that the veins on his forehead popped out. He had just observed that there were no 3,000 ghost soldiers in the forest. That fellow had just opened his mouth to attack the Jin army's morale. And these so-called skeletons. Min Hongyi slashed at a nearby skeleton claw that had emerged from the ground. Bang! The skeletal claw shattered into pieces. What followed was a painful howl from the ground. Here, how can a dead person be afraid of pain? They are just living people pretending to be ghosts. But even if he said that, he would not be able to pacify the fleeing soldiers. Right now, the only thing left was to kill the general of these ghost soldiers, the Ghost King, who was standing on top of the carriage and giving out orders. Once he chopped off the Ghost King's head, the scheme of these 3,000 ghost soldiers would be destroyed. Little Black Impermanence was a little clever ghost. When he saw that Min Hongyi was not paying attention to him, he took advantage of the fact that Min Hongyi was not paying attention to him, and quietly crawled towards the carriage. He had just crawled a meter when Min Hongyi attacked the Ghost King. He knelt on the ground for 3 seconds before crawling back, and continuing to hide behind Gu Jiao. He wanted to enjoy riches and honor with the Ghost King, but he did not want to live and die with the Ghost King. The man kept staring at Min Hongyi's movements. Seeing that he was about to attack him with a blade, the man's lips curled up and he opened his arms. His wide sleeves fluttered in the night. His body rose into the air, and then he took a step back and disappeared. Min Hongyi was shocked. His breathing stagnated for a moment, and his meridians almost reversed, causing him to fall from the sky. What's going on? How could a living person just disappear right in front of him? It wasn't because his qigong was too good or his body movement was too fast. It was because he disappeared into thin air. Min Hongyi landed on the man's carriage. He did not know where the person who lifted the carriage had gone. The carriage did not fall because there was a wooden pillar supporting it. Min Hongyi coldly frowned and looked around vigilantly. He said provocatively, "I don't believe in heresy. Come out if you have the guts. You can beat me. I will recognize you as the Ghost Mountain's king." No one responded to him. "Bullshit, Ghost King, he didn't fall for my provocation." Min Hongyi's eyes turned and saw Gu Jiao, who was about to leave with Little Black Impermanence. Min Hongyi clenched the large blade in his hand and said with a fierce look, "Since we're together, it's the same if I kill you first." As soon as he finished speaking, he abruptly charged towards Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao's ears moved and she dodged to the side. Her right hand pushed Little Black Impermanence to the back, and she kicked towards Min Hongyi's lower body. Min Hongyi jumped into the air and dodged her attack. His saber technique was very fast. Just as one move passed, another move came charging towards Gu Jiao. Damn it, he didn't have a weapon. Gu Jiao was forced to retreat. "Little brother. Here." Little Black Impermanence got a long sword from somewhere, and threw it to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao caught it and blocked the blade. She said to him, "I don't know how to use a sword." "Oh. Then this." Little Black Impermanence threw another long blade to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao said, "I don't know either." Meteor hammer. Mace. Dog beating stick. "Little brother, catch it." Gu Jiao caught the last weapon that was thrown at her. She turned her head and shot down, smashing Min Hongyi's long blade into the dusty ground. Min Hongyi was caught off guard by this sudden attack. His forearm was slightly numb. This young man clearly had no internal energy, but his spear technique was so overbearing. It reminded him of the Xianyuan family's spear technique. Wait, the Xianyuan family's spear technique. Gu Jiao had just used the 5th style of the 7 styles of Xianyuan. She could control the first 4 styles with ease. Although she practiced the last few styles diligently, she didn't use them much when attacking. Min Hongyi looked at Gu Jiao cautiously. "Kid, who are you to the Xianyuan family?" Gu Jiao held the long spear and swept it across the air. She raised it diagonally behind her back and looked at him like a killing god. "I'm the one who wants your life." Min Hongyi's temple suddenly twitched. This gaze, Min Hongyi was only in his early 30s. He had come to the Yin Kingdom more than 10 years ago. Although many years had passed, he still remembered the Xianyuan family clearly. This kid didn't look like anyone from the Xianyuan family, but his ruthlessness reminded him of the Xianyuan family's bloodthirst. Gu Jiao's strength was far inferior to Min Hongyi's when she didn't lose control. However, she didn't know why, but when she stood in this forest, she inexplicably felt a very familiar force. That was a little strange. Perhaps it was the broken armor of the ghost soldiers. That was right. It was the broken armor. Gu Jiao was enlightened. Those people were wearing the armor of the dead Xianyuan family. Ghost Mountain. Ghost Mountain was the burial ground of the Xianyuan army. Those brave soldiers who sacrificed themselves could never return to their hometown. Their souls were forever left at the border. Sorrow came from her heart. It wasn't her emotions. It was the souls of the thousands of Xianyuan soldiers. Gu Jiao held the long spear in her hand tightly, and turned to look at the general of Jin Kingdom. Min Hongyi, give me your life. I'll use your life as a sacrifice to the thousands of Xianyuan soldiers. Min Hongyi felt an inexplicable sense of foreboding in his heart. My martial arts are obviously better than this kid's, but why do I feel uneasy? What's wrong with this kid's eyes? They seem calm, but there's an indescribable murderous aura in them. It must be an illusion. How can this kid have the confidence to kill me? Min Hongyi cleared his mind and once again swung his sword at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao used the last two moves and finally stabbed his right thigh at the seventh move. Min Hongyi couldn't believe that this kid actually broke through his attack and really stabbed his thigh with the long spear. Not only did Gu Jiao stab his thigh, but she also spun it for free. This kind of thing was new to him the first time, but he got used to it the second time. Min Hongyi was a warrior with great strength, and most of his strength came from his legs. With his legs injured, it meant that he couldn't use at least half of his moves and skills. However, his luck didn't seem to have run out. Just as Gu Jiao was about to quickly finish him off with another spear, a swordsman suddenly appeared in the forest. The swordsman was skilled in martial arts and had a strong sword aura. While Gu Jiao was focused on dealing with Min Hongyi, he suddenly jumped out and attacked. Little brother, be careful. Little Black Impermanence clenched her fists and shouted. Oh no! Her long spear had already pierced out. It was too late. The swordsman had chosen the moment when Gu Jiao couldn't split herself. At the critical moment, a whip lashed out and wrapped around Gu Jiao's soft waist, pulling Gu Jiao back violently. Gu Jiao disappeared just like that ghost king His Highness. The swordsman landed beside Min Hongyi. He glanced at Min Hongyi, who was still alive, and focused on observing the surroundings. This was a very experienced swordsman. He was confused for a moment, and suddenly swept towards the direction where Gu Jiao disappeared. He slashed in the air. With a crashing sound, the black curtain that had merged with the darkness of the night was split open from the middle. Gu Jiao, the Ghost King, the black and white impermanence behind the scenes, and even the forest behind them were completely revealed. It is indeed a smokescreen. The swordsman snorted coldly. He didn't give them a chance to escape. He stepped on a tree branch and drew his sword to kill them. Gu Jiao could feel that his skills were almost on par with An Hun's. This was another member of An Hun's sect. It seemed that the Sword Hut not only colluded with the Liang Kingdom, but also with the Jin Kingdom. Or, the Sword Hut originally belonged to the Jin Kingdom. It was a very powerful force in the Jin Kingdom. There was going to be a fierce battle. She held her long spear and walked forward. The man calmly raised his hand and blocked her behind him. Step back. Gu Jiao looked at him with an extremely surprised gaze. The swordsman said coldly, Tonight, none of you can escape. His long sword was like a rainbow and fiercely slashed towards the man's head. Die. The man looked at him calmly without a trace of fear. His thin lips opened slightly and said, As you wish. The swordsman frowned. In the next second, the man raised the gun that was covered by his wide sleeves and aimed it at his chest. With one shot he sent him flying. Gu Jiao suddenly understood. It was actually a gun. Its power was something that no flesh and blood or armor could withstand. No wonder he was so confident. This should be the first gun that she saw in this strange world. In fact, there were guns as early as the Southern Song dynasty. However, she came to a dynasty that didn't exist in history. It was hard to say when guns would be made. The advantage of a gun was its lethality, but its weakness was its poor accuracy. Its maximum range was longer than a bow and arrow. However, a powerful archer could shoot a willow tree from 100 steps away. A gun would not be able to be made from 50 steps away. Therefore, its effective range was very limited. Just now, the swordsman was too close and directly hit the muzzle of the gun. He didn't even need to aim. The swordsman fell into a pool of blood and died on the spot. The man put the gun on his shoulder and walked over in a domineering manner. He used one foot to flip over the dying swordsman. His eyes were filled with disdain. There is a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There is no door to hell, but you still want to go in. If you don't die, who will? He looked over the swordsman and casually said, "Say you won't live. There is no point in interrogating you. Just wait for your death. Don't expect this ghost king to give you a quick death." There was more than one swordsman that came. The other took advantage of the fight and left with the injured Min Hongyi. Gu Jiao looked at the two figures that gradually disappeared into the night. She suddenly grabbed the rusty spear in her hand and threw it forward. The long spear pierced through the darkness of the night with an unstoppable sound, directly piercing through Min Hongyi's back and piercing through his heart. Ah! This mournful scream was the last sound that Min Hongyi left in the world. I said, "Your life, stay here." The Jin army was completely wiped out. Those who could be killed were killed, and those who could be captured were captured. The ghost soldiers at the scene began to clean up the battlefield. The man also planned to go back. He carried the gun and glanced at Gu Jiao indifferently. It is reasonable to say that those who trespass on Ghost Mountain will die. Since you saved the people of the underworld, I will let you go. You can go. Don't come to Ghost Mountain again in the future. He brushed past Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao suddenly called out to him, "Shangguanqing. Digression, I won't stay up late today. I will write in the morning. Everyone, come and read in the afternoon." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated more quickly. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896426/1056033361. HTML Genius remembered the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 855. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. More novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. The man froze. The next second he walked forward calmly. "You've got the wrong person." Gu Jiao turned around, looked at his back without looking back, and said, "Your mother is here." The man's footsteps did not stop, and he continued to stride into the night. Gu Jiao continued, "Your mother is really here. The crown princess has gone to war on behalf of the emperor, and the imperial army has been stationed in Xuyang City. If she finds out that you're not good enough to stay outside Chengdu, but came to the border to be an outlaw, she'll beat you." The man clenched his fists and continued to walk forward. Gu Jiao said again, "Yi Qing from the Imperial Preceptor Palace is also here." The man finally couldn't bear it anymore, and his suppressed emotions burst out in an instant. He turned around and said angrily, "Ah, how did you recognize me?" Gu Jiao blinked innocently and said, "I didn't recognize you. I just tricked you." Shangguanqing. Gu Jiao spread her hands. "Well, in fact, a little. The way you appeared was exactly like your father's, and your 3,000 ghost soldiers. Did you know that your father had 3,000 ghost soldiers? How could you say that you weren't father and son?" In addition, Gu Jiao noticed something strange after entering the forest, including the strange separation between her and Tang Yueshan. There should be some kind of array hidden in the forest. The art of Chimen Duanjia was very similar to the unique skill of a certain imperial preceptor. More importantly, hear this. Gu Jiao raised her hand and opened her palm, revealing a token of the royal family of the Yan dynasty. Shangguanqing looked at the medallion and then at his empty purse. He exploded again. When did you steal my medallion? I saved you out of kindness. But you're trying to steal from me. You're too heartless. Gu Jiao curled her lips. You look very easy to steal. I couldn't help it. Shang Guanqing was speechless. Shang Guanqing decided to teach this intruder a lesson. The authority of the Ghost King was not to be challenged. He spread out his arms and his body shook. The branches and leaves on the trees around him instantly moved without any wind. Tremble, intruder. Gu Jiao didn't even lift her eyelids. She looked up and came to a big tree. She casually grabbed a rope and pulled it down. Ouch! The little ghost on the tree was pulled down. Shang Guanqing did not give up easily. He slapped the big tree behind him, and the big tree began to bleed. Gu Jiao grunted. She raised her index finger and poked at a tree hole. The blood that was about to flow out. Ah, it can't flow out anymore. Shang Guanqing was so angry that his whole body trembled. It seems that you want to force me to use my ultimate move. You mean this? Gu Jiao bent down and pulled out a white skeleton claw from the grass. A confused little ghost was hanging under the claw. The little ghost activated the mechanism in the claw. The skeleton claw scratched twice. Click, click. The scene fell into a dead silence. The little ghost saw that the situation was not good. It decisively gave up its prop. No, the ghost claw, and ran away with its tail between its legs. Gu Jiao thought for a while, and generously returned the ghost claw to Shang Guanqing. Here you go. Shang Guanqing was speechless. Shang Guanqing gritted his teeth and grabbed the ghost claw. He threw it to the side. Little Black Impermanence, who was eavesdropping, was hit. It hugged the ghost claw and ran away without saying a word. Shang Guanqing looked at Gu Jiao coldly. Who are you? Did the old man send you? The new disciple of the State Master Hall? I've never seen you before. It seems that you're really familiar with the State Master Hall. No wonder you've learned from the State Master Hall, and look like half a time traveler. I'm your sister-in-law, Gu Jiao said. I'm the new commander of the Black Wind Cavalry. My surname is Xiao. When Shang Guanqing heard that Xiao was the new commander of the Black Wind Cavalry, he didn't show a complicated expression. Gu Jiao inferred that he didn't know, or he didn't think much about it. Shang Guanyin didn't say whether Xiao Qing knew about his background or not. Gu Jiao thought that he didn't know. Naturally, she couldn't make a decision to expose it. Shang Guanqing looked behind Gu Jiao. The Black Wind Cavalry also came? Gu Jiao said. They didn't come to Puqing City. They're in Xiang. Shang Guanqing. Oh. Gu Jiao asked. Who gave you the gun? Shang Guanqing rolled his eyes. Can't I invent it myself? Gu Jiao looked at the gun in his hand. It's rusty. I'm afraid it's older than you. Shang Guanqing domineeringly said. I don't care. I invented it. There was only a difference of one word. Rounded up, it was an invention. Oh. Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows and looked at the people who were cleaning the battlefield in the forest. Then, those ghost soldiers and their armor were also invented by you? Shang Guanqing said. I found the armor in the back mountain. This was the same as Gu Jiao's guess. This was the place where the Xianyuan army was buried. That was why there were so many broken Xianyuan armors. As for those ghost soldiers, Shang Guanqing began to walk on the road he came from. As he walked, he said, some of them are bandits from the border. I subdued them. Gu Jiao followed him. After walking for a long time, she understood what he meant by some, because there were obviously some here. Behind the forest was a valley with 3 mountains behind it. A small river meandered through the valley. A small bridge connected the forest and a small village in the valley. The village was divided into 2 sides. One side was where the ghost soldiers lived, and the other side was where the villagers lived. This village was obviously newly built. The thatched houses were all new. The ghost soldiers returned triumphantly and removed their armor. The villagers lit bonfires in the open space. The adults were working, and the children were playing happily. In stark contrast to Pu City, where the flames of war spread, this was simply a paradise. Shang Guanqing said lightly. These are the people of the city who suffered the flames of war, and the villagers whose villages were burned down. If the Jin army doesn't want to be human, Let them be ghosts. No wonder he killed the Jin army without mercy. It turned out that he had seen the atrocities of the Jin army. Shang Guanqing. Gu Jiao looked at him. What? He asked casually. Gu Jiao curved her lips. To praise you. I have imagined you countless times, but I didn't expect you to be like this. Although you were poisoned when you were young, causing your body to be weak, you have an intelligent mind and a kind and tenacious heart. In your limited life, you have created endless possibilities. You have saved many people's lives. Who wants your praise? Shang Guanqing turned his face away, his ears turning red. Gu Jiao looked at his red ears and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Just like Xiao Heng, he would blush when praised. His Highness Ghost King is back. A villager heard the youth's light laughter and couldn't help but look over. He was not surprised to see Shang Guanqing bringing an unfamiliar youth back. Instead, he smiled and said, Is there a newcomer joining us today? He seemed very welcoming. Most of them had been at the end of their rope and had been welcomed here by their seniors. They also welcomed the newcomers. Shang Guanqing put his hands behind his back and glanced at Gu Jiao. He said to the male villager in his 40s, No, he is just passing by and accidentally entered our forest. He will leave tomorrow. The villager was surprised. It's not safe outside. His subconscious reaction was not to question whether Gu Jiao would give out their hiding place, but to worry that Gu Jiao would be in danger outside. They were a group of kind and simple villagers. This little brother is very powerful. Little Black Impermanence rushed out, holding the ghost claw in his hand. Where is your tongue? The villager asked him. Oh, I lost it. Little Black Impermanence ran away again. Gu Jiao looked at Shang Guanqing with a smile. Shang Guanqing put on a brave front and said, Humph, I just need some manual labor. When the war is over, I'll make them all mine for me. Mine every day. Mine every day. Mine without sleeping. I will squeeze every last bit of value out of them. Hug, hug, hug. A toddler girl stumbled over and opened her little arms to be hugged. Shang Guanqing sighed helplessly, picked her up, and removed a black sesame seed from her mouth with his fingertips. Littling, you secretly ate it again. You are not allowed to eat candy at night, understand? Littling, who was 1.5 years old, sat on Shang Guanqing's arm and nestled in Shang Guanqing's arms. She lost her father in the war. She was too young to understand what it meant. But every night, she slept in Shang Guanqing's arms, as if she had found the sense of security that she had lost. Littling fell asleep in Shang Guanqing's arms. Her 10-year-old brother ran over and took her away. It had to be said that Shang Guanqing once again refreshed Gu Jiao's understanding. She thought he was an indecent guy, but after meeting him, the means he used to deal with the Jin army were really indecent. But behind this indecent set, there was compassion and gentleness for the common people. Shang Guanyin taught her son very well. Shang Guanqing said, By the way, your companion fainted, not because we scared him, but because he knocked himself out. Tang Yueshan, who was afraid of ghosts, found that Gu Jiao was missing. He hurried to find her, but suddenly hit the black wall of traps. Shang Guanqing then said, Our people brought him back. You can see him in a while. You rest in the village tonight, and I will send you out of the city tomorrow morning. The guy who bought the candied haws in the morning was really him. Can I walk around? Gu Jiao asked. Yes. Shang Guanqing looked at the north of the village. Except for the mountain behind. Why? Gu Jiao was puzzled. Shang Guanqing's expression suddenly became a bit complicated. Because the real Ghost King lives there. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_896/10559873. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Bikugo mobile version reading website. Chapter 856. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found on the internet here. The Real Ghost King. Gu Jiao looked at Shang Guanqing with a puzzled face. She was surprised but not surprised. She expected that the Ghost King was fake, but she didn't expect that there was a real one in Ghost Mountain. Wait, the real Ghost King that he defined might not be the objective truth. Everything still needs to be verified. Gu Jiao asked, "Who is the real Ghost King?" Shang Guanqing raised his chin and said, "I don't know. The friendship between gentlemen is as light as water. I don't pry into the privacy of my friends." You can't stop pretending for a minute, right? If the Ghost King is really your friend, why didn't he come out to help? I bet a pack of spicy sticks that the Ghost King doesn't care about you. Gu Jiao crossed her arms and looked at him with a serious face. Shang Guanqing and Gu Jiao looked at each other. His heart jumped, and he had the illusion that the size of his underwear was seen through. He trembled, coughed softly, and said seriously, Okay, I don't make friends with just anyone. That old guy is not qualified to be my friend." Gu Jiao took a deep breath. Xiao Heng's brother, she couldn't beat him. After removing the exaggeration in Shang Guanqing's words, the information was, "I've only met him once or twice. I'm not good enough, so he doesn't want to be my friend." Tell me what kind of person he is. Gu Jiao suddenly became interested in this Ghost King. Person? Shang Guanqing snorted, found a stone by the stream, sat down, and picked up a handful of foxtail grass. The laughter and noise behind them made people feel a temporary peace and beauty in the troubled world. Gu Jiao had been at the border for many days, but she hadn't felt this way for a long time. She sat down beside him. The two of them were separated by a distance that was neither too far nor too close. Shang Guanqing pursed his lips, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he just snorted. "Go on," Gu Jiao said. "Well," Shang Guanqing frowned, as if he was considering his words. "I don't think he's human. He's dead. At least, that's the feeling he gives me. He's surrounded by the aura of death. And his eyes don't look like a living person's." Gu Jiao asked, "Can you move? Can you talk? Is there a heartbeat and breathing?" "Yes, there is." Shang Guanqing answered concisely. "Then it wasn't a dead person. It was a living person." Gu Jiao said, "He sounds like a very strange guy." Shang Guanqing played with the green foxtail grass and said, "It's a little strange, but he doesn't kill unarmed people. There were some people who mistakenly entered the back mountain, but he didn't hurt them. Instead, the mountain bandits ran to his territory, and almost all of them died in his hands. It's all thanks to me stepping in. All right, now you're calling yourself Little Master again. You sure have a lot of self-titles." Gu Jiao asked again, "Is that why you subdued those bandits and turned them into ghost soldiers?" Shang Guanqing straightened his back. "Sort of. I saved them from that person, and they were grateful to me for saving their lives." Gu Jiao glanced at him. "There's also deterrence and blackmail, right? For example, you said that the Ghost King is your backer. If they dare to disobey, you'll let the Ghost King kill them?" Shang Guanqing looked at Gu Jiao in disbelief as if he was looking at a monster. "No way, how do you know everything?" "Because I'm an ordinary little genius at solving cases." Gu Jiao said, "So there's a big Ghost King in the back mountain, and you're the little Ghost King. Did you call yourself that?" Shang Guanqing didn't deny it. He just lay down on the long stone, put one arm behind his head, and looked at the starry sky with a piece of green foxtail grass in his mouth. "It's the old Ghost King. He's not young anymore," he said. "The old Ghost King." Gu Jiao touched her chin thoughtfully. "Hey." Shang Guanqing poked Gu Jiao with his jade-like slender finger. "I finally remember what's strange about you." "What?" Gu Jiao turned her head to look at the guy lying flat on the rock. He was still wearing the mask that covered most of his face, not revealing his true appearance. However, his eyes were beautiful, very much like the almond eyes of Princess Xinyang. His lips were inherited from Marquis Xianping, the non-smiling Shi Yi. Shang Guanqing said, I thought you were strange all the way here, but I didn't realize until just now. Since you recognized me as the eldest grandson of the emperor, why did you dare to call me by my name? Are the Black Wind Cavalry so arrogant now? Gu Jiao said, this isn't arrogance. Beating you up is. Gu Jiao grabbed his wrist. Shang Guanqing frowned subconsciously. What? Although you're a man, I'm not into men. He didn't like other people's touch, and he wasn't used to being too close to people. In this aspect, the two brothers were very similar to Xinyang. Gu Jiao finished taking his pulse and put his hand back. Shang Guanqing looked at her strangely. You know medicine? A little. Gu Jiao said. Unfortunately, I can't cure the poison in your body. Shang Guanqing didn't show the slightest disappointment when he heard this answer. After all, he was poisoned with an incurable poison. Even the imperial preceptor couldn't cure him. There were no miracles for him. He only had 3 months left to live. Maybe even less. Do you feel uncomfortable? Gu Jiao looked at him and asked. Shang Guanqing was slightly startled. He thought of many possible reactions from Gu Jiao. Maybe she would sympathize with him, comfort him, or draw a big picture for him. But he never expected that it would be as simple. Do you feel uncomfortable? It was like a kind of care from a family member. Shang Guanqing's nose suddenly felt a little sour. He didn't want Gu Jiao to see it, so he turned his back and hid his reddish eyes in the night. It's not too uncomfortable. The medicine given by the imperial preceptor can suppress the poison. It will only act up for 3 to 5 days every month. Shang Guanqing. Gu Jiao called him in a low voice. What now? He wiped his reddened eyes without leaving a trace, and his voice sounded calm and unperturbed. Gu Jiao pretended not to know that he was crying and said seriously. The Madame Nen I know is a master of poison in the Tang sect. She was going to return to Zhao country, but she happened to stay in Xingdu because of something. After the war, I'll take you to see her. Maybe she can cure the poison in your body. Oh. He had long given up hope, but he was too lazy to say his refusal over and over again. Otherwise, he would be persuaded not to refuse again. In any case, he might not be able to live to see the day he returned to Sheng City. Gu Jiao asked him, will you go back to Xiang with me tomorrow? Shang Guanqing said lightly, you go back first. Gu Jiao turned back to look at the only pure land in Pu City that had not been affected by the flames of war. She looked at the children running around, laughing and laughing. The villagers worked while talking and laughing. The ghost soldiers were wrestling and practicing martial arts in the open space in front of the door. She couldn't leave here. Shang Guanqing had collected his emotions, and the strangeness in his eyes had faded. He turned around and lay down again, biting the green foxtail, and said carelessly, don't tell my mother about what happened to me in Ghost Mountain. I'll go see her in a few days. Okay. Gu Jiao agreed. I won't tell your mother. I'll only tell your father. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/896426/89642_8926/1055832295. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile version reading website. Chapter 857. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that cannot be found online are available here. Pu City, in the middle of the night. Jie Xingzhou and the swordsman brought Min Hongyi's corpse back to the city lord's residence. Gu Jiao's silver spear had pierced Min Hongyi's heart, killing him on the spot. The swordsman pulled out the silver spear from his body, and only brought his corpse out. His corpse was covered with a white cloth, and carried into the reception hall of the city lord's residence. A man dressed in a silver brocade robe walked in. He was about 30 years old and had a cold face. His eyebrows were thick and high. When he was not angry, Yi gave people a sense of unapproachable sharpness. His appearance was on the handsome side, which occasionally weakened his fierceness. However, if one underestimated him because of this, one would die soon. He was the most warlike man in Jin. Min Hongyi was not worth mentioning compared to him. However, ordinary experts were not worthy of his attention. Fierce generals like Xianyuan Li and Xianyuan Cheng were his ultimate targets. My lord. When Jie Xingzhou saw the person who came, he hurriedly turned around and bowed respectfully. Gong Sunyu had his own aura. He strode over to the corpse covered by the white cloth and gestured with his hand. Jie Xingzhou knelt on one knee and removed the white cloth covering the corpse's head, revealing Min Hongyi's bloodied face. Gong Sunyu's expression did not change at all. Jie Xingzhou pulled the white cloth down to his ankles, exposing all of Min Hongyi's injuries. The fatal wound was the spear in his chest. Apart from that, his abdomen was hit by a poisonous hidden weapon. His thigh was pierced by a spear and twisted. Jie Xingzhou did not go into detail about those minor wounds, but these were already shocking enough. Min Hongyi was an expert of Jin and the #1 swordsman under Gong Sunyu. His skills were profound, and even Jie Xingzhou could not guarantee that he could injure him to this extent. Gong Sunyu waved his finger. 2 guards walked forward and covered the corpse with the white cloth again. They then carried the corpse and the stretcher out. Gong Sunyu came to the main seat, lifted his cloak, and sat down. With a cold look in his eyes he asked, "What exactly happened?" Only Gong Sunyu, Jie Xingzhou, and the surviving swordsman were left in the parlor. The swordsman was the first witness, so he should be the one to reply. However, Jie Xingzhou had been negligent this time, so he took a step forward and cupped his hands in apology. "Reporting to my lord, it's my fault. This subordinate shouldn't have stayed outside the Ghost Mountain to coordinate with Min Hong. If this subordinate had led the troops with him, perhaps such a tragedy wouldn't have happened." Gong Sunyu wasn't someone who cared about the process. He cared more about the outcome. In the end, Min Hongyi died. No matter how much they investigated Xingzhou's negligence, they couldn't make up for this loss. The boat was still useful. Then he would not dismiss Xingzhou. "How many came back?" he asked coldly. Jie Xingzhou braced himself and said, "1. Min Hongyi." And there was only a cold corpse. 500 of his men had been completely wiped out in the forest. Not even a single strand of hair had been brought out. The Ghost Mountain. Gong Sunyu clenched his fists and closed his eyes. The old divine general of the Great Jin died in the Ghost Mountain. The old divine general of the Great Jin was Gong Sunyu's grandfather. He had been a valiant warrior for most of his life, but he died in the Ghost Mountain in a battle more than 30 years ago. Even his corpse wasn't found. The person who killed his grandfather was the Lord of Shadows of the Yin Kingdom, the person who founded the Imperial Advisor Hall and the Xianyuan Army. The royal family of the Great Jin and the Gongsun family spent more than 10 years to finally exterminate the henchmen of the Lord of Shadows. As for the forces founded by the Lord of Shadows, the Xianyuan Army had already been destroyed. Now only the Imperial Advisor Hall was left. When the day came when he led the army to attack Xingdu, he would personally burn down the Imperial Preceptor Palace. Gong Sunyu looked at the swordsman in front of him indifferently. "Elder Lu, I asked you to save people, but you only brought back a corpse. Has the sword hut lost its loyalty to the imperial court, or has it lost its former strength?" The swordsman who was addressed as Elder Lu said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. "Although I don't want to admit to the 2 points you mentioned, if you insist on thinking this way, I have nothing to say. This time, the sword hut has suffered heavy losses in the attack on the Great Jin. Elder He and 2 inner disciples died in Xuyang, while Elder Fong died in the Ghost Mountain to save Min Hongyi. I didn't even bring back Elder Fong's corpse." Gong Sunyu said bluntly. "It seems that the sword hut without Shirtian and Hun is indeed deteriorating." Elder Lu smiled faintly and said sarcastically, "It's not that the situation is getting worse. It's just that the Yin Kingdom has a few very powerful masters. We underestimated their strength and didn't send more powerful swordsmen. Speaking of which, I'd like to ask General Gongsun why you don't even have clear information about the enemy. If you had told me earlier that they had such experts, I would have made other arrangements. Gongsun Yu clenched his fists. Experts? Humph, they're just a bunch of bandits. He didn't like Elder Lu's sarcasm, but the Sword Hut's position in the Great Jin was very special. The little sister of the Sword Hut master was the imperial concubine of the Great Jin. Moreover, he still needed Elder Lu's help. Gongsun Yu looked at Jie Xingzhou. How many defeated soldiers are there in the forest? Jie Xingzhou thought to himself. Why are you looking at me? I didn't enter the forest. He tactfully cast a pleading look at Elder Lu. Elder Lu said indifferently, no more than 500. This is the largest estimate. There should only be a little more than 300 soldiers. Gongsun Yu slapped the armrest. 300 soldiers, and they dare to play tricks on the Ghost Mountain. This was a disgrace. A disgrace to the entire Great Jin army. 500 elite soldiers led by a mighty general of the Great Jin nation were actually defeated by 300 stragglers who had become bandits. Jie Xingzhou. Gongsun Yu's gaze was cold as he gripped the armrest tightly. Here. Jie Xingzhou cupped his fists. Gongsun Yu said. Tomorrow morning, bring 20,000 soldiers and flatten the Ghost Mountain. Jie Xingzhou was stunned. Dispatching 20,000 soldiers to deal with 300 people was like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. But on second thought, he could understand the general's decision. The old great general died in the Ghost Mountain, causing the Great Jin army to suffer a great loss. They didn't dare to go to war with the Yin Kingdom for more than 10 years. The Ghost Mountain was a place full of hatred for the general. He couldn't wait to raze the Ghost Mountain to the ground. He was venting his anger. He was using the plants, creatures, and soldiers of the Ghost Mountain to pay tribute to the old general's soul. Gongsun Yu's tone was calm, but the words he said made people shudder. Kill them all for this general. Don't leave even a rabbit. Jie Xingzhou knelt on one knee and put his fist on the ground. This subordinate accepts the order. Chuyang. Sheng Guanyin waited in the barracks for a whole day, but didn't see Gu Jiao come back. She paced back and forth in Gu Jiao's tent. Huaner sat on the side and supported her head with one hand. She knocked on the table like a chicken pecking rice. She hurriedly stood up. This servant was wrong. Go to the door again. Sheng Guanyin said. Yes. Huaner lifted the curtain and went to the gate of the barracks. She carefully looked at the official road for a long time, but didn't see half a person. She returned to the barracks and reported. Xiao Darren didn't come back. He hasn't come back yet? It's been a day and a night. Sheng Guanyin covered her chest. I don't know why, but I feel a little uneasy. Huaner comforted her. Xiao Darren is so clever. He will be fine. Xiao Darren. Outside the tent, teacher whose greeting suddenly came. Jiao Jiao came back. Without waiting for Huan to open the curtain, Sheng Guanyin walked over and opened the curtain. As a result, she only saw Marquis Xianping's face. Marquis Xianping was just passing by. Everyone in the tent knew that he was Commander Zhao's biological father, so they respectfully called him Xiao Darren. Sheng Guanyin's face darkened. Why is it you again? Marquis Xianping. I'm just passing by. How can you blame me? Sheng Guanyin ignored him. She was not a pestering person, and would not throw a tantrum at a man. Marquis Xianping said with a smile that was not a smile. What? Do you miss this Marquis's son? Is Jiao Jiao your son? Sheng Guanyin glared at him, and turned to enter Gu Jiao's tent. Marquis Xianping helplessly touched the bridge of his nose. Women are really hard to understand. He shook his head and returned to his own tent. While walking, he muttered. Where did that surname Tang take this Marquis's son? Why hasn't he come back yet? There was no fun in the barracks. In addition, they were going to attack the Liang army tomorrow morning. In order to conserve energy, Marquis Xianping went to bed early. In the middle of the night, he dreamt in a daze. He dreamed of a thin boy with a face that was very similar to Ahing's, but it was not Ahing's face. He suddenly appeared in front of him and reached out to him. Somehow he recognized that it was his and Qin Fengwan's son. He was happy and quickly walked toward him. Son. But just as he was about to reach out and touch him, A long sword suddenly appeared from the darkness and pierced his son's chest from behind. Rumble. The sky exploded with thunder. Marquis Xianping's body shook and woke up from the nightmare. His clothes were sticky, and he was obviously in a cold sweat. Why did he have this dream? Before he could see his son was, bad luck. His son was fine. After he finished the battle, he would take Xiaoqing back to see his mother. He had never seen Qin Fengwan so surprised in his life. He believed that he would see it soon. Ghost Mountain. It was late at night. The villagers and ghost soldiers who had been busy all day all returned to their houses. The lively village fell into silence. Xuyang City was stormy, but Puqing City was the only city at night. Gu Jiao lay in the small hut that Shang Guanqing had arranged for her. She looked up at the starry sky through the window. Tomorrow will be another cool autumn day. Tang Yueshan lay in another room of the hut, snoring thunderously. The Black Wind King didn't lie down to rest. Instead, he led another Black Wind cavalry and waited quietly outside the hut with his eyes closed. Gu Jiao listened to the wind blowing from the mountains and admired the boundless moonlight. She felt peaceful in her heart. "Boss, we'll go back tomorrow," she said to the Black Wind King outside the window. The Black Wind King snorted in response. Then it snored again, indicating that it was time for Gu Jiao to sleep. Seeing that Gu Jiao was still opening her big eyes, he simply stuck his head into the window and blocked the moonlight and the night. Gu Jiao. "Fine. I'll just sleep." Gu Jiao turned over. Under the protection of the Black Wind King, she closed her eyes and fell asleep. "My lord, my lord, my lord," Gu Jiao heard faint voices in her dream. Who was calling her? Gu Jiao couldn't sleep well. She turned over, fell off the bed, and hit the floor with a thud. Ooh! Tang Yueshan sat up in shock. He didn't feel any danger, so he hugged his big bow and fell asleep again. Gu Jiao fell quite hard this time. She had a dream just now. Someone was calling her in her dream. And there was more than one. Some called her my lord, and some called her. She didn't hear anything else. She woke up from the fall. The Black Wind King poked his head in. "I'm fine." Gu Jiao stood up with a big bump on her head. With this fall, her drowsiness was completely gone. The moon was bright in the first half of the night, but the second half of the night was covered by dark clouds. "It's going to rain soon." It was very stuffy in the hut. Gu Jiao came out to get some fresh air. She stood by the Black Wind King's side, admiring the mountain range that was dyed black by the night. Suddenly, her little head subconsciously looked towards the east. The Black Wind King happened to be standing on the east side. He pressed his head against hers. "Don't look." Gu Jiao looked again. The Black Wind King pressed against her again. Gu Jiao jumped up and lay on the back of his horse. She kept looking. She blinked and said, "Boss, shall we go to the back of the mountain?" The Black Wind King, who couldn't control his naughty child, snorted helplessly. The Black Wind King carried Gu Jiao to the back of the mountain. There was a formation in the forest, and the ghost soldiers were on guard there. There were no ghost soldiers patrolling the village. The Black Wind King walked very softly, not waking any of the villagers. In order to prevent the villagers from entering the back of the mountain, Shang Guanqing ordered people to build a row of fences that were as tall as a person. The Black Wind King jumped over easily. Gu Jiao patted his mane and said proudly, "Boss, you're awesome." The Black Wind King said, "Don't flatter me." The Black Wind King and Gu Jiao arrived at the foot of the mountain. Gu Jiao got off the horse and looked at the dark mountain. She muttered, "The back of the mountain is so big. Where is the Ghost King? Forget it, let's go in first." They went up the mountain and walked into a dense forest. This forest was rarely visited by people, and the vegetation was much more lush than in the front of the mountain. A venomous snake slithered down from the tree branch and flicked its dangerous tongue at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao raised her hand and grabbed it. The poisonous snake. Gu Jiao had no interest in this kind of small poisonous snake, so she threw it away. The man and the horse went on for a while. Gu Jiao didn't think it would be so easy. Unexpectedly, she saw a graveyard as soon as she came out of the forest. At the top of the graveyard sat a motionless general, who was holding a long sword and wearing armor. He was as if he had been petrified. The 3-foot-long sword in his hand was shining coldly, as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. At this moment, Gu Jiao finally understood what Sheng Guanqing meant. Sheng Guanqing was right. This person was really dead. There was no trace of a living person on his body. He believed from the bottom of his heart that he was dead. All that was left of him was a broken shell in the world, like a soulless zombie. The moon broke through the thick dark clouds and climbed into the night sky, sprinkling cold light on the graveyard and his body. Ka. His neck suddenly turned and slowly looked in the direction of Gu Jiao. Digression, little cuties, do you still have monthly tickets? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896/10558296/10558296. HTML Genius remembered the website address. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 858. Please scan the QR code below to download the app for more exciting content. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. A person and a horse stood at the entrance of the graveyard. Gu Jiao faced the moonlight and her whole face was exposed under the moonlight. It was a clean and lively face, in sharp contrast to the man's shriveled cheeks that were covered with dirt and blood. He was wearing a rusty armor and a rusty helmet. His whole body was spotless and shiny except for his 3-foot-long chest. His eyes were filled with an endless aura of death, like a bottomless black abyss. Being stared at by such a pair of eyes, even Gu Jiao felt oppressed. This was a man that she didn't want to fight with, because he was too strong. But sometimes, the more one was afraid of something, the more it would happen. Sheng Guanqing once said that the Ghost King wouldn't hurt weak people. Gu Jiao didn't have any internal strength, so under normal circumstances, no one could detect that she knew martial arts. But obviously, this Ghost King was an exception. A sharp murderous aura burst out from his lifeless eyes. And then his slow body turned around. His agility seemed to have increased 100 times in an instant. His hands formed into claws, and he used his internal strength to grab and swing in the air. Gu Jiao only felt an invisible hand choking her throat, and then she was pulled up and thrown out. Gu Jiao's waist hit a big tree, and the crows on the branches were awakened. They fluttered their wings and fled their nests. The leaves rustled and fell. Gu Jiao fell heavily to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. This guy was so strong. No wonder Sheng Guanqing called him the Ghost King. With this strength, even an Hun couldn't take advantage of him. The Ghost King's eyes fell on Gu Jiao again and he paused. Maybe he was surprised that Gu Jiao didn't die. Of course I won't die so soon. Gu Jiao pushed herself up from the ground. If I had known that I would have to deal with such a troublesome fellow, I would have put on my armor. That wouldn't work either. The armor was too eye-catching. If he wore it, he wouldn't be able to enter Puching City. The Ghost King struck Gu Jiao again. Gu Jiao, who had finally managed to stand up, was once again beaten to the ground. She lay face down, looking very much like an injured little sad frog. Gu Jiao, at least let me hide. Gu Jiao stood up like a carp. His nose was bleeding, but he couldn't hide his imposing manner. This time, I won't let you hit me. Bang. Smack. Gu Jiao was beaten to the ground again. Gu Jiao's face was buried in the ground. Her hands were tugging at the weeds on the ground. Her small body was trembling violently with anger. Damn it. I can't dodge it. Gu Jiao's body gradually emitted a terrifying murderous aura. You're the Ghost King, right? You've really angered me. Prepare to receive my wrath. Crack. The Ghost King moved quickly and appeared in front of Gu Jiao. He grabbed Gu Jiao's collar and lifted her up. Gu Jiao realized that the Ghost King's body was extremely tall and big. In front of him, it was no exaggeration to say that Gu Jiao was like a little chick. Let's make a deal. Do you need a little brother? I'll let you have old Tang. Tang Yueshan sneezed in his sleep. The Ghost King's murderous aura did not diminish. Gu Jiao rolled her eyes and changed back to her female voice. Actually, I'm a little girl. The Ghost King was stunned. Very well, now's the time. I'll poke your eyes out. Gu Jiao clenched her fingers and poked at the Ghost King's deaf eye. 3 seconds later, Gu Jiao looked at her 2 fingers that were swelling at a speed visible to the naked eye and pursed her lips in grievance. The Ghost King blocked it in time with his Qingfeng sword. Gu Jiao actually forced the Ghost King to use his sword. Although it was in an extremely cunning way, it still attracted the Ghost King's attention. The Ghost King did not give Gu Jiao any chance to struggle, nor did he leave any leeway. He raised the Qingfeng sword in his hand and stabbed it towards Gu Jiao's abdomen. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the Black Wind King rushed over. It let out an excited cry and knocked Gu Jiao away. Gu Jiao, who was knocked into the tree, was speechless. The Black Wind King pounced on the Ghost King. The Ghost King raised his sword and was about to cut off the Black Wind King's head, but it stopped in mid-air. The Black Wind King circled around the Ghost King and neighed excitedly. It rubbed its head against the Ghost King from time to time. It did not look like a 16-year-old horse. Instead, it looked like an excited pony. Gu Jiao lay on the tree and looked at it in confusion. What's going on? Boss, you rushed over here without a care for your own safety. So it wasn't to save me? You knocked me away because I was in the way? The Black Wind King circled around the man who was either a general or a Ghost King. The whole graveyard was filled with its eager and excited hooves. Woo, there was also a whimper of grievance. The Ghost King's stiff body finally reacted. He raised his cracked and rough hand and gently placed it on the Black Wind King's head. The Black Wind King rubbed its head against his palm. Shao. He opened his mouth. His vocal cords had already shrunk after not speaking for many years. The voice in his throat sounded like it came from an old bellows. It was hoarse, broken, and unpleasant to the ears. You Shao, are you? Is this the Black Wind King's name? The Black Wind King jumped up and down excitedly. At this moment, its childhood came back. Its life was complete. After it finished its excitement, it suddenly quieted down. It looked at the Ghost King, who did not look like a human anymore. It seemed to have realized something and let out a sad cry. Gu Jiao lay on the tree and began to analyze the current situation. This mountain was the burial place of the Xianyuan family. She did not know why she came to this conclusion. In fact, based on the information she had, it was impossible to infer this point. I seem to be very familiar with the Ghost Mountain, Gu Jiao murmured to herself. In the dream where she foresaw her ending, she did not have any interaction with the Ghost Mountain. After all, the war with the Liang state and the Jin state took place 9 years later. At that time, Shang Guanqing had already died of poison. The real Ghost Mountain King was also dead. In this life, many things were different. But I still can't explain why I feel familiar with the Ghost Mountain. I didn't come here in that dream. Gu Jiao could not figure it out, so she simply stopped thinking about it. Even she herself did not understand the secrets of her body. Gu Jiao jumped down from the tree. The Ghost King raised his sword at Gu Jiao. The Black Wind King blocked him. Under his sharp and vigilant gaze, he walked step by step to Gu Jiao and rubbed his head against Gu Jiao. This was the person he wanted to protect. She was on his side. The Ghost King's Qingfeng sword fell. Gu Jiao walked over. Since they were on the same side, Gu Jiao did not hold back. Gu Jiao raised her bleeding face and said in a mighty and domineering manner, "Let me introduce myself. I am Gu Jiao, a comrade who fought side by side with Boss. Yes, little Ayu. I am also the new commander of the Black Wind Cavalry." As soon as she finished speaking, the Ghost King swung his sword again. Gu Jiao was completely caught off guard. What was wrong with what she said this time? But she did not suffer those attacks for nothing. At least she dodged this attack. It seemed that the real battle was the best shortcut to improve one's strength. But she did not manage to dodge the second attack. The tip of the Ghost King's sword stopped an inch away from her throat. This was because the Ghost King held back. Otherwise, she would have already become a ghost under his sword. Too weak. He said very slowly, put away his sword, and left with the Black Wind King. So you attacked just now to test whether I am qualified to be the commander of the Black Wind Cavalry? You should have at least said hello in advance, hero. You almost scared me to death. Gu Jiao brushed the dirt off her clothes and followed. On his left was the Black Wind King, and on his right was Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao hesitated and asked, "Are you from the Xianyuan family?" He ignored Gu Jiao. When he was not attacking, his movements and expression were very slow, as if it was very strenuous. Did he think that a dead person walked like this? He did not answer. Gu Jiao did not find it strange. This person had been isolated from the world for many years, and had long forgotten how to communicate with others. But he could say the name of the Black Wind King when he was young, which meant that he did not lose his memory. Of course, it was not ruled out that the brain had forgotten under normal circumstances. No one could remember everything they had experienced. Gu Jiao turned to look at the hair under the helmet. It was gray hair. His age was that of a grandfather's. Excluding Xianyuan Cheng and his brothers, it could not be Xianyuan Li. Xianyuan Li's body was personally brought back for burial by Dukan, so it could not be fake. Moreover, if Xianyuan Li was still alive, then he had no reason to not go back and guard here with an identity that was neither human nor ghost. Gu Jiao followed him and looked him up and down. Fortunately, he did not seem to mind Gu Jiao's inspection. Gu Jiao noticed that his breathing was not very stable. He should have suffered a very serious internal injury, and had not recovered. Living was torture for him. She did not know why he held on until now. Was it just to guard the graveyard of the Xianyuan army? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that cannot be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1055603884. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. Chapter 859. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. As Gu Jiao thought about this, she slowed down and fell slightly behind. She wasn't in a hurry to catch up. Instead, she looked up at him and the Black Wind King. There was no doubt that only the Xianyuan family could make the Black Wind King so excited. Therefore, regardless of whether he answered or not, Gu Jiao was so sure. As for who he was from the Xianyuan family, Gu Jiao had a vague guess in her heart, but she needed further confirmation. The Ghost King brought a person and a horse, or to be exact, the Black Wind King. Gu Jiao was just along the way. She was now the Black Wind King's little follower. After walking for a long time, they exited the forest and entered another forest. They even crossed a small stream and arrived at another mountain. Gu Jiao didn't understand where he wanted to take them, and she felt that he was going in circles. Gu Jiao voiced the doubt in her heart. "Where do you want to take us? Are we going to where you live? Tell me the direction and I'll find it myself. I promise I won't go in circles." The Ghost King paused for a few seconds, probably thinking about how to say those words. Then he thought of something and said slowly, "Look at the scenery." He wanted to take little Ayu to see the scenery behind the mountain. Gu Jiao was speechless. "Can we not see the scenery?" Objection overruled. Gu Jiao was sleepy, so she rode on the Black Wind King's horse and fell asleep. When she woke up, she found that she was no longer in the forest, but in a spacious cave. The walls of the cave were covered with night pearls, illuminating the whole cave. The Black Wind King silently guarded her. As for the Ghost King of the Xianyuan family, he wasn't there. Gu Jiao thought that he went to guard the graveyard again, so she stood up and went out to look for him. As soon as she reached the door, she saw him sitting outside the cave in the same posture as he did at the graveyard. Gu Jiao saw that there was no repulsive murderous aura around him. So she walked over and sat down beside him. The Black Wind King also walked out silently, looking as if he was going to keep an eye on his little brat, so that he wouldn't be bullied by his old master. Gu Jiao asked, "Well, can I take your pulse? That's how polite you are when talking to big shots." "I'm a doctor," Gu Jiao said. He did not refuse. Gu Jiao took his arm and placed 3 fingers on his wrist to check his pulse. His pulse is very strange. Injuries were inevitable. However, it seemed that he was not just injured. There was a pulse in his body that was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. It was this pulse that allowed him to erupt with unfathomable strength. Gu Jiao pondered for a moment and said to him, "Your face is dirty. Let me wipe it for you." Then she took out a handkerchief and tentatively put it close to his face. Seeing that he did not refuse, she felt relieved and wiped all the dirt off his face. When the weathered face was completely exposed in front of Gu Jiao's guess was confirmed. "I saw your portrait in the library of the State Master's palace." "You are," Gu Jiao called out his name. Hey, wake up. Where is that guy?" In the small hut, Tang Yueshan was shaken awake by Sheng Guanqing. Tang Yueshan could understand a little of the language of the Yin Kingdom, but he could not speak it well. What? He asked in the language of the Zhao Kingdom. Sheng Guanqing switched to the language of the Zhao Kingdom in a second. "I ask you, where is your companion?" Who are you?" Tang Yueshan fainted when he entered the forest and woke up just now. He had no idea what had happened, and did not realize that he had met someone who could speak the language of the Zhao Kingdom in the territory of the Yin Kingdom. "Alas, forget it," Sheng Guanqing sighed. "I'd better look for him myself. That guy probably went to the back of the mountain." Tang Yueshan looked at Sheng Guanqing's back and did not understand what he was talking about. "Hey, did you see my companion? A guy in cyan with a red birthmark on the left side of his face." Sheng Guanqing waved his hand. "Maybe he went to the back of the mountain. I'm looking for him too." Hearing this, Tang Yueshan did not have time to sleep. He quickly sat up and followed Sheng Guanqing with his precious bow and arrow. The night wind blew and Tang Yueshan woke up a little. They were in a small village in a valley, and the forest in front of them was the place where he and Gu Jiao were ambushed. "Little brother, may I ask what happened just now?" he asked politely. Sheng Guanqing said, "You and your companion were saved by me. Unfortunately, your companion was not obedient. I told him not to go to the back of the mountain, but he sneaked there in the middle of the night." Tang Yueshan was relieved when he heard that Gu Jiao was fine. Sneaking to the back of the mountain was nothing. There was no place in the world that the girl did not dare to go. The more you told her not to go, the more she wanted to go. Next time, just tell her to go to the back of the mountain. She would be too lazy to go. Tang Yueshan complained in his mind. Suddenly, he thought of something and turned to Sheng Guanqing, who was wearing a mask, and said, "Little brother, you speak the language of the Zhao Kingdom well. Are you also from the Zhao Kingdom?" Outside the cave, Gu Jiao fixed her eyes on his face. He looked a little different from the middle-aged man in the portrait. He had experienced many vicissitudes of life, but his outline and strength of character were the same as before. Gu Jiao called him again. Probably because he had not heard this name for many years, he was in a trance. After a long time he murmured, "Xian Yuan Qi." Gu Jiao told him with certainty, "Yes, you are Xian Yuan Qi." "Deh," he said. Gu Jiao nodded. "That's right. Xian Yuan Qi is dead, but there is a second Lord of Shadow in the world." Dark shadow. Confusion appeared in his eyes for a moment. It seemed that he had been guarding the graveyard alone for too long. His mind was a little absent-minded. Although he did not lose his memory, many of his memories were faded and confused. Xian Yuanli was the Grand Marshal, and Xian Yuan Qi was the Grand General. Both of them were unyielding men of the Xian Yuan family. They were the existence that made Jin and Liang tremble with fear. It was really sad that he had fallen into this situation. Gu Jiao said softly, "It's okay. Think about it slowly." He really began to think about it carefully. During this time, Gu Jiao did not disturb him. Liao Chen had always believed that Long Yi had killed Xian Yuan Qi, but in fact, Xian Yuan Qi was not dead. Gu Jiao was very curious. What happened between Long Yi and Xian Yuanqi back then? Also, why did he believe that he was dead? Why was he not willing to let his corpse be buried in the ground? He closed his eyes and completely entered a state of selflessness. Gu Jiao waved her hand in front of his eyes. No reaction. If I sneak attack you now, can I succeed? As Gu Jiao said, she stretched out 2 fingers and poked at his eyes. He did not dodge in any way. Gu Jiao's fingers stopped an inch in front of his eyes in time. You're right. Forget it, think about it. No one will come to the back of the mountain anyway. As soon as she finished speaking, there was a sneaky sound of footsteps on the path in front of them. Gu Jiao looked at Xian Yuanqi, who was meditating beside her, and motioned for the Black Wind King to stay here, while she went over to take a look. This cave was remote. She had to pass through the narrow gap between the 2 cliffs in front of the open space, and push through a patch of bushes and thorns to reach the path outside. When Gu Jiao walked out, she coincidentally bumped into the person who came. Tang Yueshan was caught off guard by the sudden appearance of a figure, and his bow and arrow were fully drawn. Gu Jiao said, "It's me." Tang Yueshan was stunned and looked at Gu Jiao. "Ah, it's really you." "Fortunately, I reacted quickly, or I would have been exposed." "Ah, why are you so rough with your words? We're kindred spirits." Sheng Guanqing withdrew his gaze from Tang Yueshan and walked quickly to Gu Jiao. "You didn't meet the old Ghost King, did you?" "Ah, what's with the blood on your face?" Gu Jiao said without changing her expression. "Oh young man, I was too angry and had a nosebleed." She would never admit that she couldn't beat that guy. Without giving Sheng Guanqing a chance to find a flaw, she continued, "Besides, I met the old Ghost King." Sheng Guanqing didn't believe it, and firmly believed that the young man in front of him was bragging. With this guy's skills, the old Ghost King would definitely regard him as an enemy and tear him apart. Sheng Guanqing snorted. "Then tell me, where is the old Ghost King? We just went to the graveyard, but he wasn't there." Sheng Guanqing had been to the back of the mountain several times, and every time he met the other party in the graveyard. Gu Jiao said mischievously, "So you haven't been to the old Ghost King's lair? Are you a close friend of the old Ghost King?" Sheng Guanqing was poked in his sore spot and said angrily, "He invited me several times. I just didn't have the time to go." Gu Jiao raised her eyebrows. "Oh, Sheng Guanqing." On the way here, Tang Yueshan had learned from Sheng Guanqing that there was a very powerful guy living in the back of the mountain. There seemed to be something wrong with his brain, and he was very wary of martial arts practitioners. "I don't know who's more powerful, me or him. Forget it, it's not convenient to fight with the 2 young ones here." Tang Yueshan said, "Let's leave here first." Gu Jiao looked at the 2 of them and said, "You 2 go first, I have something to do." Tang Yueshan asked, "You're not going back to Ziyang tomorrow morning?" "I might not be able to, let's wait." Gu Jiao wasn't sure how long Xian Yuanqi would meditate, so she could only pause and say, "Let's wait a few days first." She had an unusually strong intuition that she couldn't leave the Ghost Mountain, or she would never see Xian Yuanqi again, and miss the answer she wanted forever. Sheng Guanqing looked at Gu Jiao suspiciously. "You're not really going to see the old Ghost King, are you?" Gu Jiao said, "You don't have to worry about me, but on your side, Jie Xingzhou and the assassins of the Sword Hut have gone back. Based on my understanding of Gong Sunyu, he won't let it go. Early tomorrow morning, the Jin army will enter the mountain to suppress the bandits." Sheng Guanqing snorted and said, "Don't worry, I have a plan." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642826/105558964. HTML Genius remembered the website address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile reading website. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.